bad. I beat you in, crank up back too fast. Oh, oh, just like that. I see a dub in my future stats. Oh, I know a place you can go. The doghouse outside my massive abode. It's lovely, it's cushy, and sometimes it's cold. Now sit and watch me get this gold. Oh, I just want it all. I just want it all. I'm gon' bounce. I'm gon' bounce back. Said you want it all. But you want it all. Said you want it all. Bounce back. Said you want it all. But you want it all. I can have it all. If you knock me down, I will feel the fall. I just got back up. Oh, bounce back. I just want it all. I just want it all. I'll keep bouncing. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I keep coming back. I can't hold it back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I keep coming back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I can't hold it back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I keep coming back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back. I can't hold it back. Yeah, I'm bouncing back.
We up in your business, we ain't stopping, yo, it's time to go, let's get it. Whole squad, get ready now, let's go all out, let's win it, win it. We gon' get the bag, we gon' get the loot. And if we gotta fight, you're gonna get the boot. Nowhere to hide, when we in pursuit. We the champions, y'all can't dispute.
It's been a long time since we saw you at the summit, and now the Major 2 journey begins. Who will make next weekend's grand finals and continue their climb towards the Fortnite Global Championship? Welcome to FNCS. Hello, in the words of Zeke, we're back, baby. At least I imagine that's what he's going to say on the NBC broadcast later today. Takata is in the middle of myself, Frankie Ward, and Mini Miner. What's it like to be the filling of this Fortnite sandwich?
I don't know if I'd put it that way, but hey, it feels good to be back. Minnie, it's like it's 2023 all over again, back on the desk. I'm feeling good. I'm excited.
Yeah, Mini
good to be
Minor.
back good to be back on the desk with Takata, of course. Definitely looking forward to it. And looking forward to this major as well. Of course, the last full major before the Global Championships in Antwerp. Cannot wait.
Well, Takata, let's haze you into the desk because I want you to talk us through the format we're going to see for Major 2. We've already seen the play-ins, but now it's the heats.
As a reminder, same as Major 1. So we are in the group stage right now. The players have already played through the play-ins, so we are at Heat 1. 3 heats are going to be played this weekend. There's 2 ways to qualify. One is you get top 10 on the leaderboard, but there's 5 matches being played each heat. And if you win one of those matches, you automatically advance. So it's going to be a total of 15 duos per heat. But Mini, we also got a last chance.
Yeah, we do, of course, have that last chance qualifier as well. It's going to be 5 games, 5 victory rounds to qualify yourselves all the way through to the major finals. That's not to be confused with the FNCS Global Championship last chance finals, which will be on the 14th of August to qualify through to the Global Championships as well. So lots of action to look forward to.
That's one of my favorite things about this year is the fact that we get to broadcast the second day of the last chance qualifier. So next Tuesday, make sure you're with us to see the 5 duos who will make it to next weekend's grand finals because we love a last chance at the FNCS. But you know who made it all the way to the Global Championship on their first chance? Syaz and Scary and Takata. They were dark horses in Major 1. They were even dark horses on LAN, but now they're going to be coming out swinging. But can they do it consistently and win Major 2?
Yeah, how long will they kind of have that title, right? Because you can put them up against some of the veterans in the lobby. I mean, Syaz Scary, they've got 5 FNCS finals appearances. There's duos like Cammy and Hari who have 42 FNCS finals appearances, but it seems like the talk of Syaz and Scary, it's been pretty consistent recently. Like you said, already qualified to globals. Now, if I think of playstyle for this duo, they were tied for the 2nd worst average placement in the play-ins, but they had some of the highest 10 plus elim matches, and that reflects here. 0 to 10 point games, 9 of them. 60 plus point games, 6 of them. They take a lot of risks, Mini. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that seems to be the sort of story with this duo in terms of their playstyle. It's high risk, high reward. Sometimes it's going to pay off and sometimes it definitely isn't. And that can work for them in a lot of ways. So we wanted to break down exactly how these guys are fighting and when it does go well for them, how things do actually play out. Of course, because Takata's on the desk, we had to bring out the Spanish duo, so it had to be done. But let's take a look at an example right here. How does Scary and Syaz actually end up taking this fight right here? We often see them sort of looking for a lot of these sort of little lurk plays to try and find some of that early damage, which Syaz does here. And what they do here is really interesting. They go on both sides of the wall. Scary can get a cone in, and then Syaz can take down the player. Just shows how cohesive this duo are in fighting, Takata.
Right, here's another positive example, and you know what, let's actually just pause right here. Now, Syaz has a couple options. He could take his 1v1 directly below him, or he could go up above and try and help out his teammate in a 2v1. But it's interesting what he actually does. Mini, what would you do here?
I would probably jump in on the guy below and get knocked immediately, and then my team would be shouting at me. But I want to see what Syaz does because, of course, he makes things a little bit differently. He actually thinks ahead here. He actually places cones, which actually almost creates this sort of invisible wall between this first teammate that's below Syaz and, of course, the teammate that Scary is fighting over there. And, of course, what that gives, all of that piece control, all of that ability to actually separate both of these individuals. So they're not just mechanically gifted, these guys. They also have the IQ. And you can see here, Klosek trying to get back to his teammate, but he runs into the trap of Syaz, who can take him out. And again, Takata, it's that sort of cohesion, it's that same wavelength style fighting that we can see. Even if they're not on the same wall, they're still thinking in the exact same way.
So I'm wondering then, what happens when that risk is not rewarded, Takata? Because you did hint at the fact that it doesn't always go their way.
Right, it's a risk for a reason, but the good news, Frankie, is we have another example from Syaz and Scary. Now, this one isn't as positive. They play a lot of lurks. It's part of the meta. It's how a lot of teams play. Now, they lurked up on Ping and Ghost here, trying to line up a 3-2-1. So, played the patience right, took the opportunity, but if we pause right here, you can actually see didn't go quite well. Maybe like 20, 30 damage onto Ghost. So normally you have a couple options. You can disengage, which is what most teams would do. But Mini, what do you think they're going to do?
Well, I mean, going by the sort of theme here, it looks like they're going to, of course, go for it. But realistically, the smart play is going to be to sort of disengage here. They only got 30 damage. They're not necessarily close to them anymore. And remember, Ghost and Ping, they're very, very good players. Of course, they don't know that at this particular time. But let's play it. Let's see exactly what they do end up doing. And I think we can both understand what's going to happen here. They go for that overdrive grenade play. You can see Ghost right there already set up to absolutely beam Scary out of the sky. And if we just pause it right here, look at the position that both these guys find themselves in. Syaz really far away from Scary, and now Syaz has a decision to make. He has an option. He has something to try and do to Carter, which is hopefully for him get back towards his teammate.
Right, save his teammate because Ping is completely rushing him. So Syaz takes that. And if we pause one more time, stick with me, everyone watching. Look, what would you do in this situation, okay? Because as Syaz, you have two options, basically. You box up with Scary, you hold his builds, you let him heal up, you kind of say, okay, maybe this wasn't a fight, we disengage. But we talked about risks. We talked about what this duo likes to do. So let's actually play the clip and see what Syaz ends up doing. And it's not boxing up Scary, it's trying to take the 1v1. They're confident, misses the shot, unfortunately, though. And that's why risks don't always pay off. But when they do for Syaz and Scary, they do big time.
Well, it's really exciting to see these guys back, and I have a feeling they'll be troubling other duos come next weekend's grand finals. However, there are some big hitters in the lobby tonight. So let's check in with Levin2k and Taco to find out who they are.
I mean, it's always exciting when we get to heats, Frankie, because you're always looking at which heat's going to be the most stacked. Where are our favorite players going to qualify through, Taco? Looking at this heat, a lot of people's favorite players are going to be looking to make it through. And I think a lot of them will do. I mean, it's a stacked heat, but some of the biggest names in EU are going to be ready for this one.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a handful of our Belgium certified teams as is. You could almost call it somewhat of a finals lobby just in this heats alone. But Shark, Teeny, you've got the likes of Chino and Pablo. And I think that when you have just so many Titans kind of bearing through the lobby, it'll make it very interesting for some of these newcomers, some of these newer faces trying to break through to meet that standard of gameplay.
Yeah, I think this heat's got a bit of it all, right? It's got the big hitters, it's got the underrated potential dark horses like a Wox, Kiro, Minori, Dark Horse. Like, you got so much range in this heat. And I'm curious to see what our desk thinks of some of the bigger names and the more experienced veterans of this one. So we're going to send it back to Frankie and the crew to break it down.
Thank you so much, guys. Legends. There's so many of them in this lobby, but they've all got points to prove. A lot of them qualified for Antwerp already, including Thomas and Focus. But Thomas Takata, he's always reaching for that FNCS major title because he doesn't have one yet.
Yeah, doesn't have one yet. Most accoladed player to not have one. But thinking back to when Thomas HT started competing, his first earnings over 8 years ago in the 2018 Winter Royale. And like we were mentioning, he's got 19 top 10s, 9 top 3s. We talk about this, it feels like every single major, but that's a good thing because it means he's making it here. But Mini, he just can't get the win.
Yeah, he just can't. And even last season, last major for these guys, it looked like they had a really good opportunity to actually win the FNCS online. But they actually got unfortunate with a lot of the zones. Of course, they landed towards that sort of southwest side of the map. A lot of the zones were north, a lot of them were east, and it really didn't work out for them. But they still, of course, managed to qualify through to the summit and have a decent performance. But I'm just really impressed about Thomas HD. Every single time we talk about Thomas HD in the many years that we've been doing this, it's always with high accolades. It's always with high regard. It's always with a sort of context of this guy could win this season. And I find that incredibly impressive because look at his placements every single year all the way back to 2021. All really, really good. 2019 as well, it's not on the graphic, he got 9th. And 2020, his best was 3rd. So it just seems like every single year, this guy keeps showing up at the very top of the game. And even here again today, we're still talking about this guy as a potential FNCS champion. Unbelievable.
Well, I don't want to see him complaining about zones today because he's still dropping southwest of the map, Mini Miner and Takata. So, Thomas, ball is in your court. If you don't like it, move. But listen, we don't know what the Fortnite gods are planning. We do know, though, that there are some huge names still to talk about in this lobby. And one of them is Cammy. He is with Hari. And these guys, I feel like they're going from strength to strength. Yes, disappointment at Summit, placing 16th Takata, but there's so much more to see from this duo.
Yeah, it's been looking bright recently, but I have an announcement, okay? It's been 1 year. It's been 1 year officially since Cammy and Seti split up. It was Major 2 2025 in trios when that separation happened, and it was trioed up with Hari. Since then, Cammy and Hari have been playing together, and they didn't start off quite as strong as Seti did, interestingly enough, but now, Minnie, it seems like things are picking up for Cammy and Hari.
Yeah, they're definitely a sort of duo that you can expect to be, qualifying through to the grand finals here this season. Of course, every season as well. You never know what Cammy's got cooking up. And again, another situation like Thomas HD, just been playing at the top of his game for so long. I always refer to him as sort of the land go, always seems to perform when it comes to land. So I was really disappointed to see him just miss out with that 16th place in the summit, not qualifying through to the globals. So it's going to be really important now for him this season to actually make that qualification happen to the global championships, because he's the sort of player that just comes alive in those situations. And there's one thing that he hasn't done yet, of course, and that's win an online FNCS in duos. Remember, he did it in trios all the way back in Chapter 2. So he's still got that one more thing to tick off his list, which is a very long list as well, might I add.
I think that list should be headed GOAT of Fortnite, because it feels like he has nearly done it all. Now, let's talk about a Fortnite darling, because everyone loves Reason. Everyone wants to see him on land. He has so many fans. Belgium's not far from Germany. He's teaming up with Khan now because, unfortunately, Mini Miner 46th at the Global Summit with Noah Riley, and that wasn't quite enough for Reason.
No, it wasn't quite enough. And when you think about Reason, a lot of our sort of OG Fortnite competitive viewers will think back to sort of Chapter 2 when Reason was that guy when it came to fighting. A lot of people would have regarded him as one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter in the world. And taking a look at his placements from all the way back in Chapter 2, another absolute legend of the game, consistently putting in big numbers and great performances all the way back in Chapter 2. And even as recent as 2024 to Carter, sort of had a little bit of a resurgence lately, you'd have to say.
Yeah, he did. I mean, in 2024, duoed up with Vidil. They were the best German duo, 7th, 4th, 5th in the FNCS finals tournaments. But even in 2025, Minnie, they did a good job.
Yeah, it's not as good as what we've seen previously from Reason. Of course, if we take a look back at his sort of last FNCS placements, still not as good, but it does seem like duos is more of his format. I know we look at the Summit, 46, not so great, but duos just seems to be this guy's format where he has that freedom. Of course, we speak so much about the legends here on this, and there's no bigger legend, I suppose you could say, than Reason in that sort of scene as well. 25 FNCS appearances in EU. It's just been an unbelievable career for him. Of course, hasn't got that FNCS title as well, and I don't know if this is really a team that I would expect to win this FNCS, but for Reason, it's all about qualifying through to those global championships and making the most of what seemingly is a really great chemistry that he's building here with Khan, winning the play-ins, performing incredibly well, fighting really well as well. Can they transfer that, though, into the set lobby? And that's going to be the big question.
Yeah, it's interesting because back in Major 1, when duos just started again, it didn't work out with Vidil. He couldn't find his grasp. He kept changing up duos. He only made one Div Cup finals before FNCS started, but they did get a decent placement at the finals. Now with Khan, he's looking primed up.
And the play-ins, they were absolutely incredible. So keep your eyes on these guys tonight. But who else should we be keeping our eyes on, Mini Miner? Any dark horses we haven't discussed so far?
I want to talk about Vidil and Dew. These guys, I think, can really show up. Maybe not a dark horse, maybe they are. I'm not too sure. Minori and Darkos as well, a team that, of course, played at the Summit, of course, played in the Major 1 finals as well and performed well there. So excited to see a couple of our names that we haven't got the time to mention.
Takata?
Saya Scary are winning Game 3. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Then,
Who could have
are
guessed?
they a dark horse? Are they a dark horse? I'm not so sure. At least they won't be a dark horse if they just keep themselves in check and the risk pays off. Let's head over, though, to Levin and Taco to get our first game underway.
Pretty bold take there, Takata, pre-firing that Size and Scary Game 3 win. But maybe he has a little bit of Spanish insight, a little bit of Spanish intuition, some might say, Levin. But still, very excited to get into the action here. Before Game 3, obviously, we got to make it through Games 1 and 2. And I feel like just about anybody can bring home that victory royale.
No, absolutely. I think it's always great to sort of guess and pick, who you to make it through. Of course, if you then keep picking players, one of them will win, and credit to them because I think they are one of the top teams in this lobby who has potential to come through and show us what they can do. So plenty of talent in this lobby, and I think as with any EU heat, you're probably going to see a couple of upsets by the end of today.
Oh, without a doubt, because it's always so much easier said than done, right? Everybody's looking at that top 10 for placements, but right now we're going to find out who exactly is bringing home game number 1. And only handful of moments before we get to really kick things off. The action, though, bound to break out among some of our players across the map. A handful of off spawns that we are anticipating. One of the big ones here, Cammy and Hari. Definitely trying to scope out the area, already trying to get some extra pressure applied. Unfortunately, not going to net anything just yet, but Cammy still has the leverage, still has the mountaintop claim.
Yeah, and we see them in this position a lot of the times early on in games, looking for this extra bit of damage where they can. And it will be interesting to see across the next sort of 4 games whether or not we'll see more off-spawn action from these guys as far as more direct fighting. At least here in game 1, not much to worry about for Cammy and Hari.
Maybe a bit awkward at times, just given the fact that even if you have that hillside view, you still have to worry about some of those other teams trying to earn their way into the mix, become a little bit more involved in the action than what you would like. Still hanging out over by the northern city end of the map, though. Other teams just trying to do what they can, potentially even start to expand their range more than just the loot path focus. But Chris, Cordithi, also now starting to get a little bit more involved with each other. Pixar trying to see if he can apply a little bit of extra assistance here, but Cordithi is quite on the ropes with his duo. Zolik, they are doing what they can to buy some time, but it's going to be difficult to heal.
Of course, it wouldn't be an FNCS heat if we didn't acknowledge the fact that, hey, when you win a game and you leave the lobby, that opens up the room for someone to take your drop spot. And so some of these off-spawn battles might be relevant early on and sort of fizzle out over the course of the day. And oftentimes that means they almost matter a bit more, right? You want to sort of get the upper hand on whoever it is you're fighting, scare them off for some of the latter games. In this case, though, Peak's deciding, you know, we're not going to overindulge in this one. We're going to reset and go about our separate ways.
Always a bit tough to kind of let things fizzle out early on, because I'm right there with you, Liv. It almost seems as though establishing that dominance early on, maybe scaring off the other duo, could bode fairly well, but Shaken Sanctuary, getting a good look at what Walks and Kira have been up to. They were cutting it really close from opens to make it into heats to begin with, so some of those woes that maybe haunted them throughout the process of that playing stage, it's now going to be something that they expand on here.
Yeah, and I think this will be a real eye-opener as far as where these two are at. I think you have 2 very well-respected players in Walks and Kira whose results maybe hasn't respected the pedigree and the level they've shown in recent years. A resurgence here in Major 2 would do a lot for their reputations. And I feel like that's something, Taco, you could probably say about a lot of EU right now, right? How many names are we familiar with over the course of the years in EU who just haven't quite been performing at the level we knew them to once perform at, paired with all the newer talents who've been on the grind, who've been playing every single scrim session available.
Right, it almost feels like every single EU tournament that takes place, there's always those names that start to surface and break through and really showcase that, you know, there is that new era of Fortnite competitor coming into the mix, but then you have those long-established veterans like Pablo, like Chino, and this is just business as expected over at Sinister Strip.
Yeah, look, spoiler alert, this is probably the most boring you're going to see Sinister Strip over the course of this weekend. Wink, wink, NA's going to be a lot of fun, eh? But for Chino and Pablo, you know, a boring performance from them wouldn't be a bad thing. I think after the success they had in Major 1, I think you could probably argue a similar scenario where it's like, hey, it's not been as impressive so far since the summit. But again, we just know they have it within them to put on a show. These two, I think, have been putting on a bit more of a show in recent weeks, haven't they? Thomas and Focus. Another team I think we'd all expect to make it out of this one.
Yeah, and it's no surprise either that they've just kind of stuck to the game plan through and through. Really excited to see how that mid-end game starts to pan out for them, though, because they'll probably have a decent ways to trek if these zone pulls are anything like they have been in recent seasons for these guys. But still bound to show off a great performance here. Definitely some trouble brewing, though, for other teams. Solos hiding out in bushes, trying to make sure that they can obscure the vision for as long as possible. But anytime you have to go back and retreat into the storm, play for the reboot, you're only delaying your ability to rotate.
This right here is a fight that very much intrigues me, Taco. I wasn't too sure where Kami and Toos were going to be landing today. I don't believe they had marked anywhere on the drop map. Mysterious gimmick, we know people like to do it. But up against Trexa and Pradaj here, and it looks like they already got one onto Pradaj, and it's just Trexa left alone, so not a bad start to the game for them, but they will have to be careful because Woza is lurking behind them in the storm, and they'll be very well aware of what's happening here. I think it looks like they're just waiting for them, Taco, to wrap this one up with Trexa, which they will do.
But, you know, always a net positive to get those early eliminations. But at the same time, when you have that potential third-party investment, things could definitely unfold in a bit of a scarier scenario. Checking back in, though, with Kiro and Wax. It looks like they had to do it in their sights, but seemingly simmered out to not actually bode anything in their favor. But that's why we have to keep checking in on a handful of different teams, Reason and Khan. Definitely a very strong performance heading into this Heats weekend. It's now about maintaining that momentum as a newer duo, making sure that they can still maintain that level of play that they showcased throughout the Opens process. And it starts with Khan trying to find an opening pick here. Want to take the more aggressive front. We'll take a moment just to pause and heal, but they still have so much of an HP advantage. There's always the threat of a third party looming in the horizon, and that's the main sequence of events that Khan and Reason are trying to avoid. They just want to collapse, find these quick eliminations. Reason's going to help secure the first one alongside Khan, and now it's just about the isolation, both of them attacking from separate angles, make it all too easy to try and finalize on this final sequence of events here. Exec's just trying to buy as much time as he can. Everybody trying to avoid what feels like the inevitable, but sometimes that early departure from the lobby, it's just part of the learning process.
Yeah, and Exotic will stall this one out, but ultimately I think what we've seen from Reason and Khan here is them in the exact type of scenarios we like to see them. Very aggressive, looking to take fights with people. Oh, wait. Let's take a step back. Exotic ain't going nowhere. Exotic ain't done. We're writing him off too soon. He's got the chugs again to stall it out if needed. And he has forced a 1v1 here, and so Khan, I was just bigging up how aggressive he's been, now on the back foot. Can he respond well enough? Oh dear. Shields are cracked. Exotic might just pull off the 1v2 here, Taco.
It's just such a rough spot to be in, just from how quickly Reason and Khan were able to capitalize on finding that initial elimination off the tail end, and now just completely 180ing the situation. Exotic still looking to push forward, only has a handful more steps to go, and sure enough, Khan just on his last legs here, still trying to see where he can wiggle away to. The builds are quickly dwindling, though. Khan takes a moment to try and get that final bit of healing, but it's just not enough. Exotic will finalize on the elimination.
And what a turn of events there. The fight started off with such a different pace. Reason ran at Tillen. They were both looking to just take their ones. And you expect them to close out the 2v1 with ease, but they just allow Exotic to isolate 1v1s, and he doesn't miss his shot onto Reason. And just like that, two players who I think a lot of people will be predicting to make it out of this heat will be watching the rest of game one.
Might even reckon that as a little bit of a wake-up call, because you make it, you feel like you're flying through those Opens lobbies, but the whole landscape changes once you get into the set lobby scenario, and that just a prime example. Love the confidence, though, from Khan and Reason to initially try and pick that fight, make sure they could establish their surge a little early on. Just sometimes it goes south, and, well, they'll just have to go back to the drawing board, see what you can pull out next in game two. We do have 5 lobbies to work through here today, and you have to remember, even if the first handful of games don't necessarily go your way, you always have that bailout clause of potentially banking on the Victory Royale to secure your spot for the Major 2 finals. You've also got the opportunities, though, if you can play a little bit more of that consistency metric of just making it into that top 10 for placements. And that might actually be the focal point for many of our teams that don't necessarily have the expectations that they're going to be able to just net the win outright.
Let's see here, picking up the pieces in the storm. Which, again, you've been watching a lot of comp, you'll be very familiar with all the storm play we've seen this season. They've got a bit of a journey to make it there. Sires and Scary. I mean, the analyst did a great breakdown as far as how aggressive these two can be and how willing they are to make risks. And I think the key thing for them is in a lobby like this, where they do probably have, you know, an advantage as far as quality, and a lot of the opponents play with that confidence, play with that aggression. We've seen it work for them in Grand's lobby, so why can't it work in this one? I think will be the main thing in their minds.
It's always good to get that experimental phase and actually see whether or not a strategy that maybe has some of those risk factors a little bit more involved. But Scary and Size, they are definitely not ones to back down from a fight. And even with Shark and Teeny and them encroaching on what they know to be a Belgium certified duo territory, I mean, they're in the same exact boat. They don't really have anything to fear. Obviously, they still want to make sure that they're in contention for the Major 2 finals performance, but bound to see them maybe get a little bit more fraggy as some of these lobbies develop.
That's the hope, right? Want to see them pick things up, entertain us a little bit here in Heat 1. Cantry, he's lost Wheat. And again, as far as the way this game has gone, they've not had to do much as far as move around this game, right? Sort of still in that early position where they would have dropped or spawned. But that hasn't been a help to them. He's down on Surge, he doesn't have his teammate, and there are plenty of bodies around him. That will just make this an awkward situation moving forward.
Doesn't seem to really be lending any favors towards Country or Zoldyck. As Momsy and Skyjump, they've now decided to become involved. They recognize the fact these duos are fighting. It means they're likely desperate for some Surge, and Gorditi, he'll be the first one claimed. But now Zoldyck just trying to see if there's any extension, but Skyjump shuts it all down immediately. A great collapse by the French duo, more than happy to take their spoils, and now they are out of here. And that's the exact kind of quick time to elimination sequence you want to see on these rotations.
Yeah, and again, our first bit of a taste of this weekend of just how Surge turns people into zombies, eh? Running at their walls, waiting in their box. Mumsy and Skyjump didn't have much to do there. Now you'll see them make their move into the safe zone.
And even when you'd expect it to have done some favors for Country, he's still having to worry about the rest of the lobby, just pinpointing his exact location. He's been lurking around trying to see where he can pepper some damage, and he's actually credited for that initial knock onto Gorditi. It's a bit difficult to tell with just how chaotic some of those things started to get involved with all the players just holding on top of each other, but even now, Country's still trying to just see if he can break into that edge of zone, and even by the time he boxes up, there's just still so many duos looming next to him that as a solo from this position, we haven't even made it towards the moving zones. We're still just stuck in the partials, and he's just got so much work left to do.
Yeah, and the pull doesn't help either. He's just going to be stuck on this congestion. It's going to be an uphill battle, to say the least. If the next time we check into him, he's even still in this lobby, I would be surprised. Be a testament to his ability to maneuver here, but for the teams who maybe are looking in better spirits and better shape, the time to move is now. Skyjump and Mumsy will start their ascent towards the safe zone, and they won't be the only ones doing it either. You can see all the players starting to move on through now. But for the players who were positioned in the safe zone already. The opportunity now to open up and just get some more limbs. Teeny and Shark looking to farm here as players rotate their way on in.
Teeny and Shark, this is just brutal. Absolutely challenging every single player that's just been a little bit too late to the party. They have an excellent position to kind of just hold all of these duos at bay, really prevent them from traveling anywhere near their line of sight. And Swizzy actually going to be claimed in the mess here. Darkos and Minoru, you were just one step ahead. That little bit of an advantage, sometimes that's all it takes, especially in a meta like this one, Levin, where it feels like players can just disapparate in moments' notice. There's just so much aggression that's starting to really take place here, but Pixie now left in a very difficult position. He knows that he's just got to leave Swizzy to the wolves. He won't actually have an opportunity to look back and try to save his duo, and his loadout is looking grim. They are going to need some form of a refresh, and right there, that's all you need to see. The overdrive, sometimes working against you if the lobby just happens to be looking your way.
Yeah, with just the nature of this zone, so much water, so much flat open land, so many more line sights you're at risk of when making those types of rotations. Which is why if you're Thomas and Focus, you just get above the rest of the lobby and you ain't got to deal with any of that. I say get above the rest of the lobby, there is one team higher than them. Woes up, positioned on the other side.
Actually, a chance to look back and see just how well Thomas and Focus are kind of displaying their awareness. That's exactly what you want to see. A great defensive metric. Also prevents Rep from having any real opportunity to try and challenge them on height. And now Skyjump, Momsy tuning back in. They're still struggling though with their surge. Despite finding that early elimination back in Storm, it hasn't done them too many favors just now. This rotational pull just going so far away, but Skyjump with a very big shot there to land an elimination, but doesn't really have an opportunity to loop the body. Unfortunately, just has to keep it moving. They're just still so far away, and they know what awaits them the longer it takes. And Momsy now forced to reconcile as a solo.
Yeah, props him from getting out initially, but ultimately this is always going to be a tough one. They don't have time to think, they just have to move. Momsy on the move will pick one up along the way. And I mean, every little helps at this point. You'll just take whatever you can get.
It's so difficult to watch. Forced to drop into the water, but completely out of builds. The entire lobby just zoning in. So that'll be the end of lobby run number 1. But Shark, Teeny, they've done a great job at elevating themselves from where they were last seen. Focus and Thomas, though, still very much aware what's been taking place here. And now punishing Teeny for that rotation forward. They already on the front side of zone control, even at a slightly lower tier. Now they'll have the opportunity to ramp up, take back control of high ground, and see whether or not they continue to suppress the rest of this lobby. And any bit of momentum that players had started to try and use to sort of ascend forward, it's going to be very difficult to maintain. Thomas and Focus, they are looking very healthy on height. Shark, Teeny, they had to pause and heal. Bound to use up a decent amount of their resources, but still, not deterred. They'll head right back to front side. Seems like Teeny and Shark are adamant on trying to control height.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard, man. With the things Thomas is doing with that Stinger SMG right now in this lobby, anybody trying to take their height off of them is going to be in for a world of hurt. But it looks like both of our premier teams in this lobby are looking for the one and done. They don't want to play any more games after this one. So that battle for height will continue. Chino and Pablo, they ain't quite worried about the height just yet, but they're looking strong as the moving zones continue.
So many players, though, still trying to make sure they can have some semblance of control towards that front side of zone. Hero and Walks playing a little bit more towards the back, but Chino with an excellent shot here. Just a perfect punish onto Miguel, and unfortunately, Chino, Pablo, that's the exact sort of refresh that they were hoping for. Just buys them a little bit more time to replenish some of their shields, but Shark, Teeny, they are just tunneling non-stop on this lower layer. Eventually, someone is going to have to contend with the amount of space control that they've managed to build up here, but they're running low on mats. If they want to properly continue challenging, they're going to have to find another set of eliminations. And obviously, everyone is trying to secure that victory royale. But Chino, Pablo, they might be the ones to ultimately take over on the low ground.
Yeah, time is running out for Shark and Teeny, and so you see Teeny trying to force the issue towards Pablo on front side low. Pablo, though, has the HP to fend him off for just a moment. And we'll see what these two can do with their backs against the wall. They will make and open up the right edits. Can't quite connect to anything. And so, again, as this lobby continues to thin out, it just looks like a better and better situation for Focus and Thomas up above.
More than content to sort of let these lower layers cannibalize themselves for them as Teeny. Oh no, Wox has lost Kiro in the fold, so now Wox just scrambling, trying to look every which way, but there's just too many bodies surrounding him. Waza claims Wox, then gets cleaned up. Teeny and Shark, though, they might just be the ultimate victors of the low ground. It's a solo Pablo Wingu. We've seen him in this position before, and whether or not he can actually overcome it, it's going to be a very difficult task. He's still got two relatively healthy duos to contend with, but Focus and Thomas, this looks like their game to bring home.
They have not had to do much. With the way those zones pulled below, it just forced everyone into each other. And they'll look to try and make that happen one more time. Pablo will look to be the spoiler to Teeny and Shark. They have to deal with him first before they look up on height. They need anything that they can squeeze out of him to keep them in this one. Shark running around with just no builds remaining. And he's trying to get the elim while dodging the pressure from above. And I don't know how much longer he can do it for. The tree allows him to survive. And so now the 2v1 against a Shark with no builds. And you've got to think that Focus and Thomas will do it. But Shark hits hard, he hits heavy. And so it's never over until the final shot connects. Shark up against Focus now. Who will hit the crucial shot? Shark dancing around the storm line. He's trying to find the angle, trying to find the right opportunity. He has the builds now to play around with this one. And it's not going to be an easy finish here, Taco.
Battle of the new era, that's for sure, but Focus, he's trying to make sure they maintain that 2 versus 1 advantage, just immediately taken away from them. But Shark looking to play spoiler, whether or not he's actually got the gusto to pull it out, though. Still buying a little bit more time, making sure that he's on as much even footing as possible. Both of these players down to their last final builds. Focus still looming overhead, crouching up, but just no advantages in sight. And Shark trying to break everything surrounding him just to see whether or not he could squeeze out an additional build here. Finally gonna try to go up. Focus with an excellent block there to prevent Shark from challenging him outright. But Focus, he still knows they've got to try and get the job done. He might have the health advantage, but they're both completely out of builds. Shark stuck on these lower layers, forced to start trying to make his way through some of these pre-existing builds. And not only that, but the storm just ticking away at his HP bar. Focus only needs to connect a single shot to bring down Shark, but he knows just how dangerous this position could really be. In fact, he's not willing to take it to risk. He'll let the storm handle it for him, and just like that, Focus and Thomas, they are out of here and headed straight for the Major 2 Finals Battle Bus.
Hey, look, I know we said this is Heat 1, but that might have just been a preview of what you can expect in next week's Grand Finals. It's going to be Focus and Thomas that secure our first spot, and what a way to do it as well. Frankie, Mini, Takata, what do you make of that one?
Well, I, for one, am living for the hydration break meta, because we've seen heal-offs before, but actually seeing this 1v1, I was transported back to the player room in Dusseldorf, seeing the pros go 1-to-1 and getting to see those two play cat and mouse, having their pauses, not panicking, and just giving us top quality Fortnite. Mini Miner, what a way to open the first game.
Yeah, really great from Thomas and Focus. I mean, it's nice to see them picking up the first game victory out. They did it last major as well in the very first heat, so it's nice to see them sort of replaying that, I guess you could say. And yeah, it's a team that we'd expect to qualify through into the grand finals. I do think it was a bit of a misplay from them, though, with Thomas HD going down. It's like you have those chug barrels, you have those, you have the player advantage. It's like, surely with the chug jugs, you don't want to be dropping down and then, of course, trying to take that 1v1, but ultimately, Focus was the one that closed it out, Scar.
Yeah, it was closer than it should have been in the final moments, but leading up to those last moving zones, they had control a majority of this match. They were always healthy, always had mats, didn't have to take risky fights to get refreshes and recuperate loot. I mean, they were basically in control the whole time until that final moment where it got a little nervous, but the deja vu came through. They won the first game in their heat last major. They won the first game in their heat this major, automatically qualifying themselves straight to the finals where in last major they got 4th, and funny enough, Sharktini got 5th, right by them on the leaderboard. So very funny way to close this one out, but it was definitely the right play doing the heel off there.
It's going to be really exciting to see if other big names are now going to be stepping up into their place and taking the next victory royale. The fact that we got Shark and Teeny in that last 1v1, Pablo clutching 3rd for the duo. I mean, I can't wait to talk about what these big runners and riders were doing. We do have to take a break before we can do that. But Mini Miner, just one more thing on Thomas and Focus before we go. This map, it's incredibly congested. It feels claustrophobic almost in terms of the drop spots. It looks like duos, they've got places to themselves. Thomas and Focus, they are not inhabiting anymore their tiny little island in Heatwave Harbour. Do you think any duo is going to move into that spot despite it being so small?
Yeah, you have to imagine so. A lot of teams will then go into that drop. It always happens in these heats. It always happens where a lot of maybe the smaller teams will then try and go there as well. Maybe we'll have 2 teams. Who knows?
Who knows? Let's go to a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the other duos in the lobby.
I got hit with that one off. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid play. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Welcome back to FNCS Major 2 Europe. We've had 1 game, we've got 4 more to go. So let's take a look at the leaderboard and see where we're at. And a quick reminder, in the heat, if you win a victory royale, you go straight through to next weekend's final. Thomas and Focus, they did the back-to-back. They did it in Major 1, they've done it in Major 2. They won their first game of the heat. So we don't get to see them play until next weekend to Carter. I'm devastated because that was a show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're happy, but they're like, where are they going to get their practice now? They're just already there. Now, looking at number 2, Pablo Chino, Sharktini. This is a top 3 that you'd expect to see in any elite tournament. Yummy, though, and Co. Great job in 4th place right now. But, you know, it is game 1, Mini. Things can change.
Yeah, still early days, of course, for these guys. Of course, Shark and Teeny, a team that, of course, had a really good endgame right there. Not too many in terms of eliminations. It looked like they were going to set up for high ground here a lot earlier on in that endgame. Of course, it was Thomas HD and Focus that ended up taking them down from that position. And ultimately, it was just too much of a beam. I think it was from Focus to make it happen. But they play these mid-ground layers actually really well, exactly as we'd expect to see from these guys. And I suppose whenever there's a team that have maybe a lower amount of eliminations and they're playing that mid-ground layer, it just shows how well they did play it. They used all those materials really effectively. They made sure to use old tarps, and they weren't too wasteful, right? So it just shows that these guys are really prepared right now. They're looking good. They're feeling good. And of course, it was really unfortunate actually for Shark that he couldn't quite find this win because he almost did everything perfectly. It was just unfortunate that he didn't have as many chug jugs.
Yeah, I'd say he literally did everything he could. I mean, he got the final refresh at 0 materials. He needed materials at that point. But Frankie, it was a good play by Shark and Teeny.
I mean, I'm excited to get to see more games from these guys. And now that Focus and Thomas are out of the lobby, the high ground is surely theirs to take. You know, there's some big names here. Swizzy and Pixie, for example. We didn't see much of them in the first game, but I imagine they will bounce back. Pablo and Chino, though, you see them in second place there. These guys are almost guaranteed to get through, whether it's via Victory Royale or consistency. And the thing that I loved about these two in this first game, Takata, was that both of them were still alive in zone 11, and Pablo finished things off in third for the guys.
Yeah, there was the 3 big trios up. Thomas Focus, Sharktini, and Chino Pablo. The chemistry's there. I mean, this is one of the best duos, not only in the region, in the whole world. And what's interesting is they actually drop pretty close to Thomas and Focus, and right in between, they're like sandwiched in between a triple con location. There's 3 duos contesting, so now that Thomas is qualified and that spot's open on the map, maybe even Pablo and Chino will have less people fighting in the surrounding area, so it might be less opportunities for them to play out that early game moving forward. So hopefully that's not the case. They're first place in terms of consistency, not counting Thomas and Focus, so I'm sure they'll be able to keep it up.
Okay, I jumped the gun. Actually, it was zone 10 when Chino went down, but we're sometimes used to seeing one of these players for this duo having to clutch through zone after zone after zone, so it's a fantastic start for these guys. Also a fantastic start for Kiro and Wox. This is a duo that we saw pulling off some great fights in the mid game, and I think they're a duo that we can expect to see more from. They've got great histories behind them, but now as a duo mini-minor, we should be excited, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a team that really goes under the radar when we're talking about sort of really high-level EU competitive. I know, I think it was Kiro and Kiduo a good few seasons ago had a really good FNCS. I think it was around 5th or something like that they ended up placing, and they just were looking so good all season long. So hopefully for Kiduo, or for Kiro and Wox, it's going to be a good start for them because, of course, Wox didn't have a very good major one by his standards. So it's a good start for them, and hopefully they can continue.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, the story of Wox's former trio from last year, but there's no time to talk about that right now because we're ready for game number 2 with Taco and 11-2K.
Definitely excited to see what actually takes place over at Heatwave Harbor, because with the drop spot now opening up, since Focus and Thomas are qualled through here, Levin, you'd have to expect that someone else is going to try to stake their claim to the POI.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of teams like contest each other in that area, right? So surely someone decides we don't want to be involved in this madness of sport anymore. Let's go land over there. And I think the biggest problem with that mentality is you might not be the only one thinking that. So then you're contested anyway off spawn at a POI you don't usually drop out. We'll see. I think we've seen examples of both, right? There's been times where we expected someone to take a POI and it never actually happened, right? Because people are just so focused on what they're doing in the lobby. So I'd expect someone to land there. We'll see who it is. I think there's a bunch of different candidates all around the map who would be willing to take the spot. So let's see who is able to change their off-spawn fortunes here in game number 2.
Open up a lot of opportunities for everyone else still left to compete in today's competition, but those first lobby jitters bound to start sort of fizzling out here for any of these duos that might have had that little bit of anxiousness heading into today's heats. And now I think the big question that remains is just who's going to bring home lobby number 2? There are just so many possible answers to fill in the blanks there, but right here, right now, just trying to hone in on who's going to get the best drop.
Looks like someone's been outdropped.
Just a bit. Kiddo and Prex wasting absolutely zero time. When you've got all this room to work with now, Where's down just a solo, hiding out in the bathroom, but Prex and Kiddo, they won't be content until they've got this second elimination under their belt. They want to ensure that they have full stakes to the area. Where's doing what he can. See if he can finagle his way around. Stuck on the staircase, though. Nowhere left to run. The shot not going to connect. And just like that, Prax Kiddo striking first here in Lobby 2.
Yeah, and a fight that I think people are probably predicting them to win, right? I think oftentimes people are scared away by teams who are off spawn. Prax and Kiddo, I think in the past have shown an ability to do well in these types of scenarios, and just from the drops alone, it looks like they're well ahead on this one. Trex and Pradage looking for some better fortunes after the struggles we saw from them in game 1.
It's a bit complicated too, right? It's just knowing that Tus and Karmi have really kind of played spoiler to the area that Trex and Pradage have been landing at. Just waiting to see whether or not Golden Grove continues to kind of have those 4 teams sort of circling around it. That's always going to complicate your early loot path strategies and whatnot. Even the Surge. We saw just how much Surge was plaguing a lot of these players in that first lobby, and there's not a whole lot of time between matches to sort of revamp and figure out what strategy is actually going to work best to actually make sure that you can overcome that deficiency later on.
Pablo and Chino, a team who in that last game were involved, didn't necessarily look like they were in with a shot of winning it, sort of traversing through those mid-ground layers, but I think they showed that they are going to be a team who, whether it's through a win or through consistency, will probably be leaving this lobby on their way to the finals if they can keep things up. Adil and Chu looked good at times in that last game, but again, I think there's still more to these guys' story. One of the teams who obviously we saw at Summit and chose to stick together.
A little bit of team building chemistry even, because there was that lapse, you could say, in terms of determining whether or not they would actually see things through as a duo entering this season competition, but a lot of these teams just sort of kind of encroaching on the outskirts of the map, just trying to gauge whether or not they'll be able to actually find their footing early on. Even if you can escape a lot of the early turmoil, doesn't mean that you're going to be uncontested forever. It's now Pixie and Swizzy. A little bit of trouble over at Battlewoods, but definitely seeming to have the upper hand here, as you would expect from 2 veterans. Just so many builds to kind of break through. Step across, Pixie, Swizzy, trying to see if they can establish a little bit more space here, but Swizzy actually receiving a little bit more return fire than he'd been hoping for, and just like that, have to kind of keep playing peekaboo through the window. That right side peek you would think would lend him a slight advantage here, but it's that possibility of the sneak up from first duo. This is the last thing that Pixie and Swizzy probably trying to get entangled with. Surprisingly enough, though, Pixie gonna just head straight towards those vending machines. Even pick up the Pulsar scanner. He's done playing guess and check. He'd rather just know for sure who's in the area. And a little bit of a look over at Sunken Shores just to kind of highlight some early issues there for Reason and Khan. They came into this weekend relatively hot, but now's not the time to start to cool off. They're really going to have to look to start bouncing back here if they want to scale their way up for consistency on that leaderboard.
Yeah, these guys, we saw them taking fights in that first game, but not really looking to commit and overextend where they didn't have to. I think in this game, maybe a bit more of a different approach where they're probably going to be willing to invest a bit more just to try to see things through. Those are the kind of adjustments you end up having to make in lobbies like this one. Susie and Pixie, the bosses of Battlewood, for now.
Definitely looks like that pulsar scanner did Pixie some pretty big favors here. Sure enough, the markers going through made it much easier for Pixie to just close out on at least one of those eliminations. They've been trying to stake their claim to Battlewoods all season long, but they're not the only ones interested.
Teeny and Shark here on our screens. Did you think he was going to do it? You can be honest with me, Terry. There was a part of you that thought Shark was going
I
to
think
do it.
Focus thought he was going to do it, and that's why he went for the heal-off option. Better, better safe than sorry if you're in that sort of position. But I would not have been surprised in the slightest to see Shark overcome it. The moment that he got that first elimination onto Thomas, that's kind of the moment where you have to stop and rethink everything.
That's what the best players will do, man. They'll fill you with fear. That's why you just never want to just give them the easy 1v1. Especially not. Shark is the last person on EU you want to give the 1v1. Hold on a minute. You know what? I take that all back. Forget about Shark. He's not the real deal. I'm a fraud.
He might be feeling like a fraud just now. Teeny. He forced to lick his wounds and head off elsewhere. Oh my gosh, he's right though. Like that, the counter breakout in that instant.
Let's not rewatch this one. I don't. No, we don't need to show the replay this one, guys. Come on, guys. We ain't got.
It's a bit vicious by production if you think about it.
Great. Well, look. Usually you don't want to give Shark the 1v1 because usually it doesn't go like that. But I think every Fortnite player has their moments. It won't be the end of their game though. I don't think that one will be. So it looks like Peaks and Krisk were able to get their limbs, but the fighting ain't done here in the storm. It's never ending. Whenever the zone pulls away from Lifty.
That's been a slight problem too for this north side. Everybody fighting over the bending control as Chris Peakser. They just had a better setup ready to sort of ambush anyone that actually headed that direction. But it does leave teams in awkward positions now because even with that vending control, they still know that there's a solo looming about. They also know that there's bound to be potentially some third-party interference teams that didn't necessarily have the best start to this match that might be shifting a little bit further north. And Dino and Kylie, one of those duos, not too far off from where they initially started off, and more than happy to take advantage of the situation.
We've seen a couple 1v2s or near 1v2s, so I'm not gonna write Peaks off just yet. He has the whites to play relatively long, but so do they. Yeah, they actually just don't want to deal with that. Fairs.
If you've already got a net benefit from one elimination, sometimes it just works a bit better. Get a slightly better positioning, moving a little bit further, closer towards the zone, and then you can always look back. You know there's going to be at least one duo trailing that's not necessarily in the greatest spot if they do play for the reboot later on. Minori and Darkos, on the other hand, though, making their way up from pretty deep south side position. And definitely a duo to keep an eye out for in terms of picking up a Victor Royale at some point throughout these remaining lobbies. Granted, they're not the only ones hunting it out. Yummy, Zarek, now looking forward, see what else they can try and build.
They're in a good spot here. On that, again, if they're patient enough, there will be opportunities that come. These players just move on through like that. Ooh. Oh. See, look, I'm not a complete jinx.
They're just not the only ones sending shots. That's the bigger takeaway. The moment that one team is sort of pinpointed as the weak spot. That's where you start to see everybody else more than happy to try and gather their surge too. But only sitting 156 above. Spari and Elise, a little bit more of a difficult position. They are just below, so they likely want to start getting a little bit more aggressive with that duo just next to them. But when you have that third-party presence, it makes it so difficult to actually look for a box fight. You know that you could become a victim at a moment's notice, and it's the one thing that everyone's trying to avoid. But Orc and Sato and Podesai chilling inside of Wonky Land. Got a decent base up, but still got a decent amount of work cut out for them.
Yeah, they're a team that I feel like maybe, I don't know if under the radar is the right word, but team filled with surprises here. And I think a lot of the time it just comes down to whether or not they've woken up on the right side of the bed. Sometimes come through these just exhilarating performances. So hopefully we get one of those today.
Some of that may be even hinging upon, I think, Sato more directly. He's had those circumstances where he's just been such a prominent fragger in a lobby, but now in this set lobby, definitely need to pull out all the stops. Can't afford to go between hot and cold performances. You really just want to try and cement your position early on, not through a victory royale, but just by building up enough placement points early on so that you can afford to have maybe 1 or 2 out of these 5 lobbies not necessarily go your way.
Yeah, and obviously we saw Exotic go down earlier, and so the position that leaves Tillin in is not the best one, but he's making the best of it here. You see just how tough he's making the rotation. I don't know if you want to anger these guys as they move on through. It might not matter with just how many other players are sort of rotating around them. They just have to focus on getting in themselves. No time for revenge whatsoever.
Sometimes you can see that mentality take place, though. If it's not going to be me, it's not going to be you either. And that's where things can start to become a little bit more complicated. But for Waza and CK, still just waiting. A little bit of a hillside position, but the congestion is quickly pulling their direction. Darkos and Minori seem to be involved. Now a little bit of this mix-up here. But CK and Waza, good amount of materials. Not really in any sort of rush, kind of recognizing the fact that there are just so many other teams trying to rotate through their area. But first and foremost, see if they can pick apart Pixar. Not going to connect the shots that they were hoping for, but Pixar just having to get ever closer. I mean, they've got to come straight to where CK and Waza are at. And for that alone, you would think that this would go entirely in their favor, but in the last couple of moments, other players in the lobby trying to see if they could steal that one away. The elimination points are credited towards CK and Waza. Still, so many other teams left to kind of rotate through this area, and Wonky Land just has a lot of varying terrain here. Lots of little places for teams to hide. And for those that are already set up, like Podesai and Sato, this is where you want to kind of see them utilize that early advantage.
Yeah, we've gone from one corner of the map to the other. I'm sure Focus and Thomas are watching this one very glad they don't have to partake in this game. For Hari and Cammy, a better situation for them this time around. We'll see whether or not they can make good use of it.
It's a little bit tough. Shark is back. So I'll at least get to see whether or not he can fully make up for that little bit of a hiccup earlier on. Granted, this is really where you start to see, I think, Shark and Teeny really shine, is in those endgame moments when the pressure starts to be at its highest levels.
We saw them vying for height before Focus and Thomas took it off of them in game 1. I would not be surprised if they look to play it here again.
Not sure I'm a fan of where Ju is currently forced to try and contend with, but for Hari and Cammy, this worked out excellently. Managed to find elimination in the low ground, potentially even upgrade some of their loadouts, but for Ju, that solo position, well, you would think that would help them out a little bit here, but Hari now just being completely focused by the lobby. Might still have an opportunity to try and revive Cammy, but it is going to come at a cost. A good amount of hard material having been expended there, and Trexer Pradage now circling up, trying to see if they can get the advantageous play, and they will be able to at least steal the body loot there from Cammy. Big benefit, Trexer and Pradage there though, and Hari, the fact that he's left kind of fend for himself, always a difficult spot to be in as a solo. But Shark and Teeny still working together, try and make sure that they put themselves in the best possible position for a win.
Yeah, that's the worst spot to be in. But still a great opportunity and plenty of opportunity here for the rest of the players in this lobby. And we're seeing who's taking their opportunities when they come. Shark is certainly one of them. Kaduo left without a clue what has happened to him. And look who's up there trying to play height right now. It's Size and Scary.
Have to see if they have enough material for it though. Even Ju doing a decent job at least at avoiding some of that lower congestion, but 24 below, you're gonna be forced to start dropping to see if you can find a player. It's just a little bit more weakened, but with no way to replenish any shield, it's all going to come down to whether or not you can connect some shots. And even when the opportunity presents itself, only 68 above, no refresh just yet. He needs that little bit of siphon to really try and turn things around, but you're left as a solo. It's difficult to try and have any sort of control towards that middle layer. It's only a matter of time before he comes to clash some of these other players. With Pablo, Chino, we saw them underneath it all, just steadily working their way towards front side, claiming a lot of space, tarping things out. And now his zone pulls a little bit more over the waterways. Chino and Pablo, they're not going to sit and wait. They know that their best odds for contending on a win here is just going to come at the cost of being able to look back and spray the rest of the lobby here, as Hari, also a solo, debating whether or not it's worth going for that body loot, but kind of understanding it's just potentially builds that could make a difference here later on.
But he's got to be careful, right? He doesn't want to end up being one of those players in the backside that people are looking to spray. The zone will start to pull back towards Wonky, and this might just work in Sides and Scary's favor if they can look to squeeze the lobby out. The longer they sit here and wait without moving, the bigger chance they get chopped, and that's exactly what happened. Shark and Teeny were quick to try and take it, and they'll look to move up the hills. Sides and Scary will retain it for just now, but look at what they're working with now, Taco. Sticks and stones are all that's left in their inventories as far as builds go, and so Shark and Teeny will identify that and make their ascent, looking to try and take it. Size has been cracked already. They can be patient here, but ultimately it feels like the inevitable will be Shark and Teeny up here on height.
That split distraction, too, was just so excellently played. Shark going for the immediate aggression. Meanwhile, Teeny just sitting back, continuing to spray at Size and Scary, really preventing them from having any sort of opportunity to try and defend themselves. And now Scary, as a solo in the lower tiers, finds an elimination onto Waza. Just a little bit more build, but will it be enough to actually cut through the difference here? I'm afraid that with the resources being so limited, Scary's time will be cut short. It comes at a cost for so many other duos underneath. Podesai knows Sato is knocked. Only 2 builds remain for him as well. This pullback over the elevation of Wonky, it was just such a steep price to pay for so many of our competitors in the lobbies. Pixie doing a great job to accrue a little bit of solo placement points here, but Teeny and Shark have ultimately overtaken the high ground, and even if their material count is relatively low, it might not be that big of a handicap in comparison to where the rest of the lobby is stuck, unable to actually make it towards the high ground.
And you're just seeing how much chaos is now taking place here within Wonky. And it's honestly pretty safer to be up on them higher layers right now because you end up in spots like this. Pixie walks into Hari's box, and talk about Hari's performance here. He has managed to stay alive here as a solo for so long, and he's squeezing every bit out of this game that he can. Cammy watching in delight. Shark, Teeny, looking to try and thin the lobby out by force. Don't want to make the same mistakes that the other players who have had height in some of these games have made. They want to close things out from there, but it won't be enough to do it. They have to go down and take it with all the players dropping down below.
And Podesai still kicking too. Good pose to be a pretty big threat with that last refresh. Shark doesn't have any materials. He's just going all out aggressive alongside Teeny, who also doesn't have material count, but Teeny finds the knock. Can they get to the body? Can they siphon the loot? Podesai immediately catapulting himself though far and away from the clutches of Shark and Teeny. Now back on even ground, but it's the build's differential that's really lending itself a huge favor here to Podesai as he takes down Shark. Now only Teeny left to try and contend with. Podesai just bringing out all new signs of life here in these final moments. He's got the high ground, a little bit of jug, and that's all it takes. Podesai and Sato have stolen this one away from Shark and Teeny and left them for that second place positioning yet again.
Another second place for Shark and Teeny, and at the hands of a determined Podesai. We said it earlier in the game, Taco. These two have the ability to pull out great performances, and a great performance here from Podesai in game 2. Frankie, what a game.
What a game! I was like Levin's reaction. I was just like, what is going on? Podesai, what a performance. He and Tato will be going straight through to the grand finals. There'll be a lot of happy French fans, especially a Sky Jump as well, coming in fourth with Momsy. Great day for the French. But for Podesai, the fact that he won that 2v1 versus Shark and Teeny, low less Takara, that has got to be a proud moment for the French.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to feel good. Southeast side of the map's now open after that victory royale. Took out Shark. Teeny tripped and Storm, ended up going down. But at the end of the day, Podesai Sato won the match, and it's what you love to see, Mini.
Yeah, that's what can really benefit these teams, right? You know, you can have these big games, which can either, of course, result in some really nice placement points gathered, or, of course, it can result in a win, which is great for Podesai and Sato, who, of course, now qualified through to the major finals. I want to see how sort of long Podesai was alive as a solo for there. I feel like he was alive for a decent amount of time, and this is a team that I'm really excited about. I think you always have to keep these guys on your radar. Yeah, it was a decent amount of time there Podesai was a solo for, making these plays here down on low ground. That shot was absolutely crucial as well, and it'd be interesting to sort of see it from his POV. Big shot onto Shark initially, and of course just closing out. I think it was Teeny going down in the storm somehow at the end. So really nice stuff from Podesai, and good to see them in the major finals. It's where they belong.
100%. It's what you love to see, Frankie.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's a good reminder, Podesai, he is a big long-term name in the Fortnite competitive scene. We didn't get the chance to put any respect on it earlier in the show, but we'll be putting respect on it in the grand finals next weekend. Let me assure you. We are going to take a short break though, and when we come back, we'll be talking about more of the duos because Shark and Teeny, they're still in the lobby, guys.
I got hit. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100? 100? Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Podesai and Sato have taken our second victory royale of Heat 1, which means we'll see them in next weekend's grand finals. Right now, though, let's take a look at the duos who are currently in contention for qualifying through consistency. And Shark and Teeny, they have had two top twos back-to-back. Losing a 2v1 versus Podesai has got to hurt. But if you look at the points, I mean, this is their game to lose right now, Takata.
Yeah, I mean, back-to-back end games, back-to-back second places. To be fair, it could be worse. I mean, there are 10 duos that are qualifying through consistency, and they're getting the practice in. They're getting the experience. They're getting the feel of some of these lobbies back in Major 2. I mean, it was funny. The stat that popped up, too, not only in their first game of Heat 1 and Major 1 did they get second place to Thomas HD, but also Thomas won. So a lot of deja vu going around, but this time around they broke that deja vu, getting second again. Mini, are they gonna make it a three-piece or what?
Well, we will see. I mean, they played that endgame really well, though. I was really impressed with how they took height off of Syaz and Scary. They understood that that was the time. Of course, Syaz and Scary were a little bit static. They almost gave the indication, the little signal that they were running low on those builds, and they took that opportunity so well. And even when Shark and Teeny were on height as a duo, Teeny was just jumping in boxes. We saw it just there in the highlights as well. These guys just have so much ability in this duo to either one of them find those frags, find those refreshes at any given moment. Although they didn't win that game, of course, they're going to be playing in the next game, essentially the future games as well. They're definitely a team that pretty much surely have already qualified through, but I'm excited about that because the way that they're playing these end games is second to none.
Well, you can see Pablo and Chino, they're in fourth there. They've only gone down 2 places after taking 17th in game number 2, Mini Minor. But this is a team that is picking up elimination after elimination, and it's an insurance policy for them.
Yeah, not as good of a game from these guys as we saw in game number 1. Hopefully they can continue to have more games like that game 1 than this one. But we saw them again on these sort of mid-ground layers, and it sort of brings me back to the beginning of last major. They didn't actually come into the major finals and into the major overall in that great form. They weren't looking that great overall as a team. And then it came to the major finals and they absolutely popped off. So when I saw that first game from them, I was like, ooh, maybe they've actually sort of shaken that off a little bit and they've come into this major really on fire. But then that game makes me think, oh, maybe they do still have that bad game in them as well. So be interesting to see how they develop throughout today and, of course, the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just thinking back to Pablo and Chino overall. From 24 to 25, they didn't have high expectations. After 2025 as one of the best, some of the best players in the world, expectations for 2026 were really high. But now at Summit, they got 14th, kind of mid-end of the leaderboard. now Major 2, they're looking quite strong. I mean, despite that match that didn't go too well, they're still at the top end, so hopefully they can kind of pull through and show what they're truly capable of.
I don't think anyone would underestimate these guys. I'd say they're the second best fully Danish duo, right? If they're following up after Sky and Scroll, the most consistent duo probably in FNCS right now. Let's talk about Cammy and Hari, though, because that was an interesting one for Hari, clutching his way solo through multiple zones, Mini Miner.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about Cammy at the beginning of the show and how sort of experienced as a veteran he is. And there was, of course, a reason that he picked up Hari here for duos after playing in trios. And it's for moments like these. This is exactly where Hari can use that experience that he's got, but also that fragging ability to make plays in these end games. He's not afraid in these moments. You can see he's not just boxing up. He's not just trying to play out all of the materials that he has. He's actively looking for eliminations. He's actively looking for plays. Got a little bit lucky, I have to say there, that Pixie actually missed his shot, because I think that could have gone the other way. But he took advantage of that, and ultimately that's what made the great players great.
100%.
Let's take a look. Oh, apologies to Carter. Sorry.
No, you can go. You can go.
It's just I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that we're on page 2 of the standings now rather than page 1. So you can see that Cammy and Hari there, they've gone up 10th places, so the climb is on. They'll be very happy with where they are. They're currently within contention, being within the top 15. Swizzy and Pixie, keep an eye on them as well. I think from game to game, they're going to go from strength to strength, but also Sayaz and Scary. 13th at the moment to Carter, and you made a bold prediction going into the show that they would win a victory royale in game number 3. In fact, you were slightly panicked watching that last game that they were going to do it in game number 2, but obviously ran out of materials, couldn't quite pull it off against Sharkantini's contestation.
We talked about how they like taking risks, right? How they like being confident, and they took that risk of going for heights so early on. They were on, 11 sets, sticks and stones, like 100 builds, all wood, and getting contested by Sharkantini when you got like 50 wood builds is not really the position you want to be in. So they did have a primed up elevation on height, but they just took it a little too early with the amount of resources they had available. So hopefully here in game 3, they can make some switch ups and try it once again.
Mini Miner, do you think that Takata's got this prediction right? Are Sayaz and Scary going to be taking a victory royale in this next game?
Yeah, I mean, there is a thing called Caster's Curse. It happened to Levin in that last game with Shark. Don't want to mention it too much. Hopefully, Takata hasn't actually cast a curse them, but they definitely have the potential to.
This is really interesting, isn't it? Because Levin did curse Shark, it feels like, because he was calling him a legend, and then suddenly Shark gets eliminated. They don't go on to win that game despite being in a 2v1 versus Podesai. Levin, I think you're just going to have to let Taco solo cast this one. It's game number 3.
Then again, Frankie, always have to give credit to Podesai just playing to his advantages. He knew that he had the material count to sort of delay Sharkantini from actually being able to approach him as quickly as they would have liked. We saw those desperate measures coming out of Shark, even with how overly aggressive he became against Podesai. But all eyes on Spain here in Game 3, Levin. Sayaz and Scary with the Takata guarantee, apparently. Oh yeah, it's true. I mean, what can you actually say from this position? I do feel like it might be better for the competitive integrity of this lobby if you just have to defer speaking at the start of it. I mean, that caster's curse, it is steep, and now we have to see whether or not it's going to remain exclusively on Takata here in Game 3.
Am I allowed back in? Can I speak?
I'm ready for you to tap back in, big dog.
Thank you. Look, guys, look, I can't be right all the time. You know what I mean? Like, imagine just how obnoxious that would be if everything I said was correct. Ultimately, regardless of how that game and the first game has gone for Sharkantini, I think what they have proved is that they are still going to be a force in this one, right? They have both shown us some highs, and yeah, there's been some lows, but ultimately, Sharkantini, one of the best teams. We'll see though, as the lobby sort of moves forward, there are so many teams who I feel like we just haven't quite seen enough of. There's a couple that comes to mind for me. I don't want to call anyone out just yet. We'll get there. Don't worry. We will start to call people out, especially in game 4 and 5, but I think this game will be a big one in terms of starting to see people pick up the pace a little bit. Kidua and Prax have been enjoying their off spawns here. And we'll see if that continues to be the case. A bit more of a split this time. Both teams going to get the chance to loot up and farm up. Not a wealth of chests available to Wurs, but they'll have to make the best of it.
Bus stop, not exactly kind of landmark that you can afford to split evenly. These two teams are going to have to tango eventually, and Prax Kidduo, they're already trying to make sure that they come out on the winning end of it yet again. Because it's like you mentioned, Levin, these teams, they're not necessarily backs against the wall just yet here in lobby number 3, but this is technically speaking the halfway point. This is where you're really going to have to start pushing yourself across that finish line, because games 4 and 5, they just go so quickly, especially when you're in this type of position, as Kidduo will be the first to fall here. Prax not able to actually make it up. The overdrive just cut short here. So Six and Wurs, they'll have their opening shot here in lobby number 3 to see just how far they can take it.
And honestly, that's what it's all about, right? The first 2 games don't quite go your way. You turn your fortunes around. And so that's the score of what? 2-1 now on the day. And now they have this game and a couple more to try and make that a 3-2 Gambit. Shark getting involved in some early fighting themselves. And even with Teeny going down, they will come out on top, and so Teeny will be picked right back up as their game continues. And that's a bad spot for the rest of the lobby, quite frankly, right? If these guys are able to just have their way and pick up some earlier limbs, some early dam, Surge isn't going to be an issue. They can just cruise through this one.
Then again, we've seen a lot of 2s already today for Shark and Teeny.
Well,
There's
okay, yeah.
There's a little bit of a record here, and I don't think it's the kind of record that Shark is trying to beat with this three-peat of second placement. So
Well, that's the problem. For people who maybe aren't as tapped in, if you are newer to competitive Fortnite in 2026, before Shark became like best player in EU, one of the best in the world, you know, he was on the rise last year, and he had some struggles in FNCS, let's just say that. One of which was a last chance lobby, which we will be seeing on Monday. Or is it Monday or Tuesday? I think I got my dates wrong. It's Tuesday, right?
both of them for the players play. Monday, I believe, for the openers, and then Tuesday, I want to say, for
Yes,
closure.
that's the one. That's the one. But what I'm trying to say is, last year he basically had a last chance lobby where obviously that format is you win a game and you qualify for the grand finals, and he came second in all 3 games, which, you know, wasn't great. And so, you know, he does seem to have an affinity towards second place, and hopefully you can shake that here today. Can't quite get through this window edit because of the stair, but both teams will trade reses. And I don't think it's going to matter because a third party will come in right behind. Shark is able to stay alive somehow in this situation, but I don't know if they'll actually be able to stay alive for much longer. The team that has been awfully consistent today might just be going down early here in game number 3.
And part of this, you might even say, could be a little bit of an overextension so early on by Shark and Teeny. It's almost like they're just trying to get through the game as quickly as they can afford to, heading down to Heatwave Harbor so early on. But that third party, it doesn't take long for spoilers sort of become that thorn in the side here. Teeny, though, will be able to apply a little bit of extra damage on the way out. Granted, he received some. And knowing that Teeny and Shark are going to be able to at least reconcile with each other, but Teeny's got to be careful, was going for the shield regen, and just like that, a player lurking, crouched next to a bush, catching him completely off guard, in which Shark, just so low on HP, will have a brief moment to heal, but these players are just quick to the jump. The moment that they spot a little bit of weakness here, they immediately try to see if they can capitalize on it fully, and if Shark goes down right here, right now, it's going to force them to have to sit and wait to see whether or not lobby number 4 will be theirs to take. But fortunately for Shark, at least, Boyaz will be forced to pull back another team's involvement just makes the juice not really worth the squeeze at the end of it.
What is cooking in Heatwave Harbor? It is awfully messy here so far in this game. And at this point, success for Shark will just be staying alive unscathed and having an opportunity to reboot Teeny back into the game, which if he's patient enough, I think he will get.
See, but at the same time, Shark is like poised well enough where it's almost like he's hoping that he can find that isolated pick for a player that might just choose to try and run through the building, hunting him down. Whether or not that actually comes to fruition, though, we'll have to wait and see. The reboot onto Teeny is going to be the ultimate game plan. Right here and now is X-Force, Bevies, at Chop Shop. Fully aware of the fact that they've had to get a little involved, but still not enough pressure applied to them yet to really force them into any sort of unnecessary fighting. Likely having gotten the surge that they were already looking for, much more willing to just continue mapping things out with the rotation. They want to make sure that they are in a good spot to sort of position, box up, and wait to see what happens next.
Khan and Reason, a team that I think many people watching will want to see start to pick up the pace here a little bit. I mean, I think many people in the EU have learned over the years that you just don't really want to bet against Reason's chances of making his way through to a major final. He always seems to get the job done and qualify. And Khan has all the talent in the world, so again, a team that I think the recipe is there for them to be able to make it through. It just hasn't been the best of starts to this day.
Still, if they can look to turn things around, midway point, it's always a great place to start. And Swizzy, Pixie, we saw a glimpse of the leaderboard just before lobby number 3 actually started off, but they are just outside, kind of hovering. The consistency, placement eras, Shark. Fortunately, we have to kind of gauge whether or not he's been successful in his hidden endeavors, and it does look like everyone else that was once so interested where Shark ended up has decided instead to take up separate positions. And it's crazy to think that 2 different duos could potentially just cut Shark off the moment that he tries to rotate out of here, but it doesn't look like he's trying to stick around. He wants to try and make his way towards reboot as quickly as possible, because the longer this drags on, the more time that he has to spend without Teeny, it's just further delay. And while they're not necessarily a team that you'd be worried about being able to rebuild surge or positioning on, it's still just enough of a dampener to slow them down.
Yeah, it's funny because we started off, I started off talking about how with their earlier limbs, they would have had a bit more time, right? A bit more freedom, and obviously that turned on its head. So now going to be playing the game a bit more stressed, but again, for a team of their quality, we've seen them in that position, right? I've seen them have games where, you know, they've rebooted around all the way across the map and they're still making waves in the end game, so wouldn't be too concerned. It'll be interesting to see where they're at when we next check in. Oh, what do we have here?
Could really go either way right now. Force Wrapped in Skrill or Kiro Walks. Both of these duos clearly in need of some additional points. It's less about the surge, it's more about finding those little ways to sort of scale yourself up the leaderboard. You don't want to find yourself falling too far and away from where those placement positions actually cut off at. But Skrill and Wrapped just having a tough time finding any sort of an opening shot here onto Kiro and Walks. They're still waiting to see, but Skrill's gonna have to opt play for a little bit of the heal measures off the medkits. Wrapped also will take the opportunity to try and heal off the Chug Jug. Kiro and Walks potentially even scouting out the fact that there might be an opportunity here for a third party just looming in the distance. Both of these duos bound to be punished if they continue to drag this fight any longer. So Skrill looking to get up close and personal right now with Kira, but have to remember where is Walks through all of this. So Skrill and Scrap continue to attack the same line of sight. They could potentially find themselves a losing angle against Walks, who is now opted to just ramp upwards. Full oversight, and Kiro will join him. The material account just working out pretty heavily right now for Kiro and Walks. Skrill and Scrap, they're just forced to stay dwelling in these lower layers. They don't really have any kind of materials to really build their way back up, and they don't have an escape path either. Their only option now is to fight it out or hope that Kiro and Walks decide to disengage, and that seems much less likely given how much time they've invested here already. They're going to want to find a conclusion to this fight.
Yeah, I think they know they have such a big upper hand here that, again, they just have to be patient. Don't allow this to happen. And thankfully, Walks is able to just hold on by the skin of his teeth. That was the only way Straps and Skrill had a chance in that one by just jumping into the box of one of the players there, Cammy and Hari. Let's look at what Cammy's been up to so far. All right, Cammy. You all right? You said Cammy can't get PC, you know?
You might be needing to switch up that role.
Yeah, man.
Cammy, IGL? I'm not sure. The G might stand for Fragger now.
It might. I mean, to be honest, after the last game Hari had, I think he deserves to keep that title. A big clutch from him when Cammy went down at the beginning of the end game, and he was able to make his way all the way through to that final moving zone, which isn't an easy thing to do. But when you're a player of Hari's quality, it's something that's always possible.
CK and Waza, though, start to make their way, create a little bit of distance, a little bit of a gap here away from where Vidil and Ju were at, kind of recognizing the fact that they were in a bit of a disadvantageous spot from the lower elevation point. And even though they've had a chance to build up on the edge of zone, you still want to try and factor in some semblance of control here, and they might not be privy to the fact that Scary and Sayaz are just underneath their cliff face. A little bit of a sneak attack coming to the mix here. Pablo, Chino continue. Try and make their way through. A lot of healing resources used off the medkits, but they still have the chug jugs. But what's really causing issues for them right now is that surge. 9 below currently. Not a spot that they can't work their way out of, but Thorkos and Minori, certainly not an easy team to take the one up on. They're gonna have to work for this if they can even get the tag to begin with. You don't want to appear too desperate with how you choose to clash, because they are just close enough. Only a little bit of damage can make the difference here. Surge thankfully will tick back over in their favor, but still sitting just 6 above now means that they're still gonna have to continue trying to look for those opportunities to get additional damage online. It's gonna take a bit. These end games have been relatively stacked too, and that's been one of the bigger reasons why we've been seeing Surge just kind of play a part for so long into these end games.
Bit of an awkward one there. A very awkward one. A misstep that has now cost Chino his life in this game. And so for Pablo, we know he has the ability to pull off crazy solo clutches. I mean, that's not a doubt when it comes to this guy, but being so down on Surge just adds a different level of complexity to the situation that will mean that he is really forced to make something happen there. You can see him searching, looking. He can spot the weakness, but can he connect the right shots? He can't.
With only 10 in the chug jug, it was pretty much hopeless unless he could get that little bit of damage here. But Sharktini, recovery tour, going rather well off that last elimination here, and Noctini also following suit there. So a good sequence of eliminations there to kind of restart some of the elimination aggression that they'd opened up this lobby with. Still, if height has been their ultimate goal here, a team like Swizzy and Pixie are bound to sort of continue to kind of play a problem to that. But Shark and Teeny, they have definitely been getting very aggro in this lobby, just sort of scouting out every little bit of weakness. You give them an inch, they're going to take a full mile every single time. And now, Teeny and Shark, you would never think that they had that initial pause in the action early on.
These guys are cooking. It's exactly what we want to see from them. You know, I think it's best I just don't say anything more about that situation. Let's let them do the talking in game.
A little bit grim. We've seen them in worse. Teeny probably wishing that things looked a bit better here. Now it'll be exclusively Teeny. He'll opt to even fall back and just play the med kit. Unfortunately, though, this storm just completely working against him, along with the surge, along with the lobby and backside of zone, just proving to be very difficult to traverse when teams are already set up ahead of you. X-Force and Bevies, though, switching things up just a little bit here. Much calmer scenes for this duo, having a little bit more luxury to sort of decide where they want to try and apply some aggression.
Yeah, and these guys are a team that I think many people sort of going into this will be probably looking at as like one of those surprise teams, right? A team that might just get the correct zone pull in a game and all of a sudden you're seeing them fighting for first place. Sias and Scary, another opportunity on height, and I think the big difference with this game versus last game is they don't have to worry about Shark and Teeny taking high ground off of them. And so we'll see if they can hold on to it stronger. With the trees to help them keep it, potentially, depending on where it pulls, if it keeps pulling far, might just work out for them. With all the mate. Pixie, hold on. They're looking for another limb here. Or for their first story on the game.
I think they would have found it sooner with how much damage they've seemingly been applying to the rest of this lobby. But Vadil, Ju are successful. Elimination onto Alizzi. Not a lot of Siphon materials left to work with, though, but Swizzy and Pixie, things have just come at a bit of a cost here to actually make it towards that secondary height position of front side. Hari now looking to collect and just delivers one more elimination after the next, just continuing to buy himself time on these fickle situations, but no more builds are left in the pocket here now. Hari's going to continue having to try and fight his way through that backside zone. Swizzy, Pixie, they've managed to recover their HP department, but they still need a lot more before they'll have the real opportunity here to try and even challenge on high, and they know they just don't have enough builds to work with. They want to maintain front side, but they're going to drop the ultimate low instead, and the deal does wind up losing Ju along the way, but still maybe a brief opportunity here to try and play for the revive. Instead, he might just opt zone, pulling a little bit too quickly here, and the deal just knows not a lot of time left.
What a spot. The play from the bushes from low ground. I love what I'm seeing from Swizzy and Pixie here. Can they continue to impress us in this lobby? You'd have to think so. We've seen height change hands, and it's another situation where Sias has had to drop down and try work things out in the chaos below.
Godoy and Bolo have taken full advantage of forcing Sias and Scary off of the high ground. They've got a good amount of material still left to work with. Granted, those are starting to be some difficult moments. And yeah, Scary and Sias just getting maybe a little bit too distracted by the bottom of the lobby. And so now we're forced to just wait and see who's actually going to have the advantage here. Pulling back though, Pixie, Swizzy, they've managed to manifest some big instances here on the low ground. 2 eliminations now for Pixie.
Don't drop into Pixie's box. He ain't ducking from any smoke, and Swizzy will look to join the party with him now as well. They have control, but just for a moment, they need the elim for the material, and unfortunately, that will lead to them overexpending just a tiny bit. Swizzy has some builds now just to keep himself ticking in this game. We're slowly seeing what looks like the makings here of a win for the high team. Swizzy will do his best though to try and make something happen here. And he might just find another one if he's not careful. Both players on such low HP. And this just continues to work in the favor of Godoy. And now Swizzy, it's only a matter of time. You've got to think before they take him out. Yes, they will. Godoy will get the final bit of damage there to secure a spot in the final. And we've said it over and over again, Taco. You're gonna see surprises here in the heat stage.
Hey, to be fair to Takada, Size and Scary clearly had the winning recipe. It was all about the high ground, but Godoy and Polo also recognizing that fact and stealing it for themselves. So, Frankie, let's hear what y'all have to say.
Godoy and Polo really oversalted what Sires and Scary were cooking, stealing the high ground and the victory royale from them, Takada.
I got good news though. Maybe I messed up the script a little bit. It wasn't Saya Scary, it was the Spanish duo that was gonna win game 3, and Godoy Polo did exactly that from 45th place. It was not looking good for them. 3 points going into this match, but they got the job done, and all you need is a win in the heats. So we'll be seeing them in the grand finals.
Yeah, very convenient that it was some sort of link there to your prediction, Takar. Imagine if they began with S. Yeah, they still begin with an S, so I'm still right. But no, I'm really excited for these guys, really happy. And it's just a good sort of showcase of this format and what great it can do, because this is actually the first FNCS finals for both of these players. So it's going to be really great to see a new team, a new blood inside of this FNCS grand final. So you just never know what to expect from these sort of teams in these lobbies. It's like you don't see them as maybe a contender when you're looking at the drop map, you're looking at the predictions from people, and it's like, yeah, you don't see them there, but then there's always 1 or 2 teams that crop up out of nowhere, and they're one of them.
Takara, what's going on with Spanish Fortnite?
We'll see. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Look at all right, but what I'm thinking is what's going on with Reason and Con. I mean, they've had some pretty tough matches first in the play-ins. I hope they are one of the ones that are going to win these upcoming matches.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about some of these mid-table teams after the break, because they are definitely someone we should be talking about. I mean, Vigil and Ju, actually, like when I think of Reason, obviously I always go straight to thinking of Vigil because of the fact that these guys played together in the past, both making it to the stage at Summit as well. So there are some really interesting relationships between some of these teams. But as you can see there, Polo and Godoy on the high ground, Mini Minor, and this is really where the victory began.
Yeah, and even before that as well, the way that they actually took height off Sires and Scary, we actually had a really nice sort of drone footage shot of it. It was in 4K, unfortunately, for Sires and Scary. The way that they actually just flew up there, hit the one pump, absolutely delightful. And for the rest of the game, they closed things out really, really well onto Swizzy right there, who, again, those guys actually had a bit of a comeback as well. So really excited for these guys there.
Well, I'm excited for all the teams in the lobby. We've only got 2 more games left. I cannot believe it, and I want to get on with them as quickly as possible. So let's head to a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about more of the names in the lobby.
I got healed from that a lot. I'm popping a med bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
I cannot believe there are only 2 more games of Heat 1 remaining tonight, but it's going to be so exciting to see who can clutch those final victory royales and get their tickets to next weekend's grand finals. We've got some enormously consistent teams in the lobby tonight who must be feeling so confident knowing that there are just 2 games remaining. So let's take a look at the leaderboard and see who is flying high right now. And I have to say, going into that last game, I did say keep your eyes on Swizzy and Pixie. They were 13th. They'd already gone up a number of places. And in that last game, ending up in that final fight, Swizzy got him and his duo to 5th on the leaderboard, or 5th on the leaderboard, I should say, 8th on the leaderboard. They're going up 9 places, but that's technically 5th when you consider 3 teams have already got victory royales, Mini Miner.
Yeah, no, it's great to see from these guys. And I was speaking about Chino and Pablo earlier on and how they didn't have a great start to the major last season out. These guys definitely are in that same boat as well. They needed those last chance qualifiers to get into the major finals. Remember, they didn't have a very good time in the heats at all. So it's actually really nice to see these guys finding their form yet again, finding some consistency in the off-spawn stage of the game, which is where they really struggled before. And here, of course, Swizzy clutching up, knowing what he does, knowing what he can do. Of course, has these end-game moments. He's been in these situations so many times. So you expect to see these guys in this position, and it's nice to see that expectation being met.
I mean, they've been playing together since the start of the year, so it's more what you would expect from them now. Started off not too strong, but looking good now.
And obviously, Size and Scary, Takata, they are looking great. I mean, we've seen them managing to get this high ground. They're taking it zone A each time. Is it just the fact that they're running out of materials, or do they need to cover their backs a bit more? What's going on here, Takata?
Game 2, it was more of a material thing. They were stuck on wood. Sharktini got the best of them. There was less things they could have done there, all right? Now, this was a little iffy. We'll see exactly what happened, but all I know is in a split second, Scary goes from a 200 HP to 0 HP on his knees, getting knocked down. It was 2 very well-timed overdrive grenades, 2 very well-placed shotgun shots onto Scary, leaving Syaz alone. So a little bit unfortunate there. Got to be a bit aware of the people who are looking for your height. But what I think the good news is they're consistently getting to that height. You know, if they can just keep doing that for the remaining 2 matches, odds are they should be able to close it out in one of them.
And actually, just jumping in quickly here, Mini Miner, it's interesting because when we were looking at the telestration from you guys in the pre-show, you were talking about this high-risk, high-reward playstyle, but we're seeing these guys lurking and going for the W key moments on these other duos, but suddenly they're a sitting duck in the sky, and I think that's something they have to get used to. So I think that's something we're going to see as we go forward in major number 2. I'm going to clear my throat for a second, though, because, guys, we have to take a look at the players in focus powered by Milk. So, Mini Miner, who's standing out to you?
Well, let's take a look at these stats right now. Yeah, Teeny with the most amount of eliminations, most amount of damage dealt is something that we spoke about earlier to Carter. This is a player that, you know, he's in a duo where he can be facilitated into getting eliminations, getting damage dealt as well. Both of them. A lot of people would maybe think Shark might be the player that's in those sort of stats, but look at Teeny all the way up there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the bottom solo point clutch, which is Hari. So about as many points he's been able to clutch as a solo. He's been playing incredibly well. Both him and Cammy have been doing a great job. The issue is not great enough. They're currently in 11th place. Counting the teams that have already qualified, they are in qualifying range, but just outside of that cutoff. So although it's good that the solo clutch points are being picked up, hopefully we see a bit more chemistry and see some, you know, duo points getting picked up moving forwards.
Let's bring up the leaderboard again. Just a reminder, because I made this mistake earlier. If you take a look at the top 3, they've got over 1,000 points. That's because they've got a victory royale. So really, we're looking at 4th and below in terms of consistency points right now. So take a look at Vidil and Ju. They are 10th on the standings boards, but really they're 7th in terms of consistency points right now to Carter. And this is a team we're seeing making it to the end games, but just kind of falling at the final hurdle to violence.
Yeah, I mean, like Minnie mentioned earlier, they've stuck together from the recent performances, and you know, I have actually pretty high hopes for this team. Now they're in qualifying range, but they're not comfortably there yet. And as you can see, Vidil was able to clutch out a very significant amount of points in this recent match. So I'm kind of on the edge, to be honest, Minnie, but I definitely think they will qualify. I just want to see them perform at a top level.
Yeah, great to see Vidil actually solo clutching here again as well. If you guys that watched last major think back all the way to the sort of last chance qualifier in that one, he was solo clutching so much. He was sort of the star of that last chance qualifier and couldn't quite manage to qualify through to the major finals. I think he had 2 second places in that, and that was all because of Vidil and his duo Vampy right there. So it's good to see him back on form.
Yeah, and really good to see him actually resisting that violence and bringing it on himself in those final moments of the game, picking up those all-important elimination points. We are ready for game 4, though, now, so let's head back to Taco and the Jinx. He's called 11-2K.
That is crazy. Or 11, you got to get your get back at some point here today, man. But no, realistically, as we approach games 4 and 5 here, 11, this is sort of the part of the competition where teams that are outside of that consistency metric on the leaderboard, if they're not already gunning for that victory royale, they are most definitely hoping that one of those teams inside the consistency factor actually manages to secure one, because that little bit of an extra push up on the leaderboard could make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking for any little advantage you can get at this point. And so here in game number 4, you have to make things happen. Let's see who's ready for the challenge. We've already seen after game 3 that even if your off-spawn situation was looking comfy to start the day, it doesn't mean it will remain that way. And so once more, we will see who has the better drops, who can get the better loot, and who can hit the crucial shots to send your opponents back to the lobby. Ooh, Cammy looking for one out the sky. Even without getting that, again, good little damage there. But there are fights breaking out elsewhere. So we'll continue to follow the path of those two. This is the one I was looking forward to. Six and Wers lost the first 2 games of the day. And then they were able to pick up the win here off spawn against Prax and Kuduo in game number 3. Can they do the back-to-back here, Taco, is the question.
Well, if they do manage to back-to-back the off-spawn here, they were able to convert a decent amount of points, but Six and Wers just kind of heading towards the downstairs area of the bus stop, trying to see whether or not Kiduo and Prax are actually going to challenge them anytime soon here. But it's Kiduo coming back in, realizing that there is aggression out of 6, but it's a trade ultimately, and Wers just not on the better end of things still. Kiduo, having been knocked, is going to be a reason to pause here. Prax just not willing to risk it. 6 tried to make his way towards the reboot, but it's a pointless endeavor. Prax will ensure that that is just not going to actually net anything beneficial here. Still, he had to leave Kiruo out in the open, but Wurs is just not healthy enough, and that's actually going to be the turnaround for Prex and Kiruo. Ultimately chalk it up to them taking control of the bus stop temporarily.
Hey, look, I think you take that as a win with Wurs running off. And so back to the normal balance for these guys. Use game 3 to reset.
It's just even if you get that off-spawn win, it's still about converting it into a solid enough endgame placement. But when you're sitting at just around those 15 points to start the match off, it's going to take quite a few eliminations. And realistically, you're going to have to go very deep into these end games with the placements to really start to try and build back up. I would think, if anything, either of those teams just sort of trying to bank on the fact of pulling out a victory royale in these last couple of matches here. But Niger is also looking around. Sadia, Darkos, and Minori, they're the ones potentially being threatened here. They've had Quackaway and Murder's Beach unconned pretty much the entirety of today, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and teams chuck the game plan out the window. They're doing whatever they think might pull out the win.
Darkos and Minori on our screens here. Much to be desired about what it is they've been up to. Feels like we've only ever really seen pieces of it throughout the day. Flashes, moments. And it doesn't look like this one's a good moment for them. Minori left alone now.
That's where Kaijus and Sadia are going to try and pounce. They realize that their patience at least able to net them one piece of the pie here, but they still like the other half to it. Still Teeny and Shark now stuck in a fight against Fadil and Jew, and Shark trying to see if he can turn it around, but overdrive away. That's just going to be his best escape option.
Again, a team that we respect for their fighting prowess. Not quite able to make their mark up against two of the better German fighters in this lobby right now. Jew in close quarters combat is always going to be a tough opponent, even if you're as good as Teeny. And he's feeling the effects of that here. Khan and Reason, a bit split right now. Looks like Reason's making his way back in. So they obviously know Matisse and Doom are here. It's just about whether or not they can actually get the right lurk onto them.
Sometimes you can't help but wonder if maybe that game one opener maybe punched the wind out of their sails for Khan and Reason, because it just seems so promising. The starting point for today, but sitting at only 6 points in lobby number 4. Khan and Reason are really going to have to dig deep here. If they take this engagement up against the likes of Doom and Matisse, they're going to need to make sure that they can close it out securely. They don't want to run the risk of having another duo intervene, shut down any promising opportunities here. Shark and Teeny on the pan straight into the fire, but Teeny managed to turn it around with an elimination onto Wheat.
Shark and Teeny, again, you can't count these guys out. We saw they were able to recover what was a very messy game in game number 3. Of course, it did fall apart once they got to the end game. But it does just beg the question of these guys. There's always going to be a window of opportunity for them to jump through. And here we'll get a replay of just how this fight unfolded between the two. Blink and you'll miss it.
Reason and Khan definitely had some successes here with that one elimination. Pocket here, and it was onto Matisse. Couldn't actually escape from Khan. It's good to see that conversion after how long Khan had invested alongside Reason. So one elimination to get the surge going, but still, what they're really seeking in this lobby more than anything, I'd imagine, is that victory royale. They know that the placement points are going to be very hard to sort of nestle up with the rest of this lobby, but Teeny and Shark just looking so unabashedly aggressive here. Yet again, Shark and Teeny just duo diving straight into the box of everyone that they stumbled across. Yagami this time going to be on the receiving end. That's 4 eliminations already for Shark and Teeny. But you can tell just by the way that they are choosing to key other players in this competition, Levin, that they had zero intentions of sticking around long enough to even see game number 4. They wanted to be out of here after the first, after the second, and still they're left sort of duke things out, but they have done so much damage across these 4 games. Some of these other competitors, they've at least done enough that placement-wise, they'll be safe and sound, but they'd still just want that win.
Yeah, I think ultimately, we've seen this type of thing happen before in heat stages over the years in Fortnite, right? Where you'll have a team that they like probably should have won a game, but then nobody really cares because we get to game 5 and they're like 150 points ahead, right? And like that's the sort of trajectory that these guys look like they're going to be on. Of course, after game 3, it did sort of leave a bit of an opportunity for people to catch up. So their lead right now is only like 40 odd points, but again, if they don't get that win, you'd expect that to sort of increase. And everybody will then forget the 2 games they sort of milked and didn't win. Oh, maybe not 2. I'd say one of them was probably a winnable game. The other one was an almost.
Martin Sidox, though, recognizing not really worth sticking around. Materials count a little bit lower than they'd like it to be. Solo sandwiched in between them and another duos. Chris and Peaks are still trying to see if they can give chase here, but a little bit of a standstill from one island to the next.
Yeah, and Chris and Peaks, we've seen these guys in a bunch of these types of fights today, right? And so they're clearly in their element. You've got to say they're familiar with the circumstances they're in, but the fighting will just continue for Shark and Teeny, and some revenge for Shark and Teeny. They find Vidil and Jew again, and they wipe them out of the lobby completely. No chance of a reboot and a rematch. Shark and Teeny will take down the Germans. Let's look at this one again. Shark, what are you feeling like, brother? Okay. Oh, the exit control. And then he steals one away from Teeny. So remember that thing I said earlier in the day about 1v1s and Shark? That's what I meant. And so just keep that in your mind next time around.
Yeah, you can throw the rest of it out the window. It's moments to be forgotten, because very quickly Shark can remind you just exactly what he is capable of, and that was a great opportunity to sort of highlight it. But Peaks, Chris, now looking to reintroduce themselves to this earlier fight that they had kickstarted up against the likes Polish, but it is still just a little bit tough. No duo escape from these fringes, but Peaks on the receiving end this time, and between 1 versus 1, Chris fortunately will be able to pull through on that, but definitely much more haphazard than they'd initially been hoping for.
Yeah, but I think haphazard's been the way to describe their day, right? As far as, again, just taking these scrappy fights in the zone, just trying to go fight to stay in the game. And we go from one fight to another fight. And again, the same old team, Shark and Teeny. So I guess it's fair to say we're at the stage in the day where they've just decided to just WQ, right? Like we're there. Can we say we're there? Okay, we're all in agreement.
I think we've been there, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it didn't necessarily work out the way they'd intended, but even since the last lobby, it was pretty evident that Shark and Teeny, they don't care who's up next. They're just throwing haymakers, and whoever's unfortunately close enough to get caught in it is just going to be the ones left to deal with it. They will opt to retreat back to a former little surge-based setup they had. A lot of leftover goodies, some chug jugs even. And it just gives them a good peripheral of where everybody else in the lobby might be rotating through, cutting off that area, but Swizzy, Pixie, seemingly avoiding their line of sight for the time being. Let's just... Like that, though. Stuck for a moment, but inside of the zone. So not really threatened just yet to have to navigate off of here. Choosing Karmi off in the distance as well. Letches just doing what he can to apply some pressure, try and prevent teams from cutting them off or moving their way.
Yeah, we're starting to see the distances are getting tighter. We're getting closer and closer to the end game. So another opportunity here for some of these different teams to try and make their mark here. Again, you want the win. Just being as consistent as you can be will do wonders for you. Big game can push you into them consistency standings. Of course, if you're looking for a big game, it doesn't get bigger than what Shark and Teeny are currently doing. You don't want to run into these guys if you're a bit behind on pace. Ox and Kiro managed to barely escape, I guess you could say. Still more potential victims on the horizon for Shark and Teeny as they set up here. Doom, as soon as Doom looks to rotate out. Oh, is Shark gonna leave? Oh, he's a fortunate man if Shark leaves before he has to rotate.
You would think so, but
he's
how
waiting.
close by Chino and Pablo are. It might not even be Shark's elimination to go for, but Wax and Kiro is definitely an interesting duo to see, sort of circumventing some of that pressure from Shark and Teeny, just because they are right there at the cutoff metric heading into this lobby. They were sitting right around that 16th place on the leaderboard. Obviously, you want to try and overcome that last hurdle, make it directly into that safety net of placements for consistency, qualify for the Major 2 Grand Finals. And so this is the last spot that you want to wind up in. Swizzy now really going to be tested here as a solo, only 120 above. And as the zones continue to draw closer together, congestion starts to build. It's avoided some of it early on, but not a duo. It's still going to be very difficult to actually overtake some of these other players' positions. And Chino, Pablo taken out before they get a chance to move forward. Swizzy still trying to see if he can get some additional pressure, realizes that there are players in weak positions. They have been focused, but Swizzy is still a solo. Get a chance to review what Shark and Teeny have been getting up to, and that's going to be where the shutdown for Chino and Pablo came in. Shark and Teeny, which shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, given how aggressive they have been already. But still, you'll never see Shark and Teeny complaining about taking out some strong contenders. Cammy and Hari certainly had an interesting day also. Plenty of Surge to work with, but Surge hasn't really been too much of an issue. It's more so the fact that Hari has been left in those solo clutch positions, but he has netted himself believe, an impressive 86 points in solo placements throughout these lobbies here today. Ideally, though, want to play through the full endgame with Cammy by his side, but sometimes that's not the way that the cookie crumble. Swizzy, though, still managing to squeeze out every last drop of placement that he can find, even with his builds running out. He knows all it takes is a well-placed shot, and that could be the difference maker between finding more materials and finding a little bit of extra time to play on that backside of zone 2.
We talked about opportunity hunting and Kiduo and Prax winning their off-spawn battle in this game and looking to make the most out of it. They don't know that they're going to have a game 5 to play out. And so they just want to get it done and dusted here. In the distance, you see Sires and Scary waiting for these two to make a mistake, and Sires and Scary have both been desperate to try and win a game from height. It hasn't quite worked out for them. Takata said they just have to keep trying, and maybe they'll get it. TV and Shark, though, finally will meet their match. Teeny taken down. Shark will trade. And so that makes it 8 for Shark on the game. They've got a 12 elimination game already. And that's without any more of the fancy stuff happening. We'll see just how crazy things start to pick up and get for these guys.
That's a really rough spot for Prax and Kiduo to be in also, because you have to remember they needed this lobby. They won the off spawn. They wanted to try and see if they can transition it into a victory royale. But now with Shark and Teeny on the high ground, and Shark being successful in finding those eliminations, getting the revive off onto Teeny, but that still means that there's going to be an open avenue for other teams to try and challenge. Shark still left to deal with the fold. It's up against another one, but he's pushing the players back. Shark on the high ground yet again. Alongside Teeny, they have managed to still muster up quite a bit of contention here for height.
And they gotta be careful with Axforce in the backside of the zone. You don't know what he's cooking up. Bevy's now towards the front side. You've got to think they'll try and get back together. And now it's gonna be up to anybody else in this lobby to try and do their best to take height off of Shark and Teeny. It's never going to be easy. They've come so close, touching distance now for the two of these guys in the earlier games. And this is so hard. You see the elevation dropping down below. That gives them a bit of room here.
You can tell that there are some players on height. Teeny is going to be the one ultimately trying to turn this one around. He knows that he's got the advantageous spot. Him and Shark have been doing a great job at commandeering from the high ground, but even still, we need to see whether or not Shark is going to be able to actually net something beneficial here. They're trying to build back up to the high ground. Shark knows that they're going to need another refresh, but he's trying to prevent everybody from challenging him on eliminations, and Teeny will manage to get the revive off onto Shark just in the nick of time. And just like that, Teeny, Shark, Carmi, Toos now forced to contend with each other, and Toos doing what he can to see whether or not he can buy his time with the Chug Jugs. He's healing up so efficiently, playing this one out. Teams are forcing each other to sort of clash against the other, but Teeny, even as a solo now, willing to overtake onto the high ground. Without Shark, it doesn't matter. He knows he can still get the job done by his lonesome, just looking down underneath. Teeny still managing to build overhead though. A handful of materials remain, but he's running out quickly on builds. And just like that, Teeny still hoping that the lobby just manages to deal with each other here. But it is a very precarious position to be in. He goes up off the overdrive grenade. Still landing back on height. No one has had a chance yet to truly challenge him. But this is a really tough spot to be. Teeny on a solo height.
And they've done the hard part all throughout this game when needed. But now the toughest challenge comes here for Teeny. But he will rise to that challenge. He gets one, and now the 1v2. If he can make this one stick, That would be a way to dispel this second place curse. It won't happen though, a third second place for Shark and Teeny, but it won't matter for Winter. They will take that win. What a win it is for them as well. In a game where they would have certainly needed it, looking at the standings, that's exactly what they were looking for, Taco.
No, you couldn't have asked for it to come at a better time. I mean, you are really cutting it close down to the wire here, but for Winter and Johnny Muka, they are looking good to go. So, Des, what do you guys got for us?
I feel like it's inevitable now, Shark and Teeny not qualifying for the finals via a victory royale, but qualifying through sheer tenacity. More of that after the break. But right now, a huge congratulations to Winter and Joni. Interesting to see some of these lesser-known names, Mini Minor, stepping up to the plate and getting those all-important victory royales.
Yeah, first major finals for these guys as well. So it seems like we've got a couple of teams now making their first appearance in the major grand finals. And again, it's always exciting to see these sort of names coming on through, seeing what they can actually end up performing like in these actual big events, because these are the sort of lobbies that you tend to see them in. But now the lights are going to be even brighter for them. How are they going to prepare? How are they going to approach that major final? We have to wait and see, but big props to them.
Yeah, I mean, they were 20th place going into this match, so it wasn't the complete bottom of the leaderboard, but they were not in qualifying range. So that's the exact position where you want to win a match in. So congrats to them.
Yeah, congratulations to these guys. And for Shark and Teeny, I just want to talk about them briefly because our eyes were on them in the end game. Our eyes specifically was on Teeny crazily clutching that confidence was next level. And I mean, let's take a look though back at Winter there and Joni. Now we've got these highlights out here. And Takata, I mean, this is going to give them so much confidence going into the grand finals, but it's going to be very different when we've got a grand finals lobby.
Yeah, I mean, look at the amount of eliminations they have. They have 6. That's double the eliminations they had throughout the whole tournament leading into this match in this one game that they played. And not only that, securing the VR. So love to see those pop-off matches come through. That's kind of the fun of heats, right? You never really know what's going to happen. And now with 4 matches down and only 1 left to go, means the pressure is that much heavier for all the players who are outside of that consistency qualifying range.
Yeah, and it's not easy to play those mid to low ground layers. You know, you can talk about a team that maybe takes height, gets lucky with an overdrive grenade, and then they win the game, particularly for a lesser experienced team. But props to them for playing that way, the way that they did, getting all those eliminations. It's not easy to do that whatsoever, so very well deserved.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for your insights. And we're going to have even more when we come back, getting ready for Game 5 after the break.
I got hit with that one. I'm popping in that bit. Wait, short. Got 6 builds? No, max up. Wait, if you're mid, wait. 100! 100! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Milk can help you grow. Milk can't prevent your ride from blasting into space.
Winter and Joni qualified for their first ever FNCS Grand Finals before the break, and now there's just one more golden ticket up for grabs in Heat 1. Who will be taking that victory royale and getting themselves a pass to the finals? And also, who's going to be doing on consistency points? Let's take a look at the leaderboard, because we all know who is number one in consistency right now. It is Shark and Teeny. And I feel like these guys in that last game, Mini Miner, had a point to prove. I counted 17 at least for these guys.
Ooh. Absolutely popping off. I mean, these guys were doing so well throughout even the early game of that game as well. They were fighting incredibly well. There were moments where they were just rolling through the entire lobby. And this is prime Shark and Teeny, of course, when you see them fighting the team just below height, then, of course, taking it, trying to take control of it. Not quite, of course, ending in a victory royale. These guys seem to be the most consistent team in the lobby right now. It's the third, second place today. So it's just nice that we get to actually see them throughout the day, right? It's like these guys probably could have won one of the earlier games, but of course we get to see them now in the rest of these games as well, even up to game 5.
Yeah, they copying Thomas HD. I mean, 3 second places. Are you kidding me right now? Back to back to back. The second place hat trick. Not only that, 18 eliminations. I mean, ever since game 1, they have been playing highly aggressive. Nothing new for Shark and Teeny. With that extra confidence from knowing that you're, already qualified through consistency, they are just disrupting every person that crosses their path with the amount of aggression that we're seeing from these two players. So I'm sure it's going to be nothing different in this last game, but hopefully we'll see them win it. That would kind of perfectly clean up their day today.
Well, it's interesting actually, because it's like, when these guys are still in the lobby, it's like, if you're a team that needs a win to go up for height, it's like, do we actually want to risk going up for height? Because we'll have to go up against Shark and Teeny. It's like, maybe the teams that are now further down don't play for height. Maybe they play for those sort of low ground sections, because Shark and Teeny still being in the lobby is still a force. It's so difficult.
Well, Syaz and Scary, they've also been challenging for height. Not really with the blistering success of Shark and Teeny, given that Shark and Teeny are the ones who tend to knock them off it to Carter. But it's been a fantastic night for these guys, and they have been consistent to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going well. Second place, you can't be mad with that at all, especially with, how early they have gone on in some of these matches. But being able to close out with, what you have, you can see Syaz 0 mats. Scary still is able to clutch up a bit of points. Now, we've seen a lot more talks about these players recently. They're kind of more new in the high end of these leaderboards, so I love to see them consistently placing. As a reminder, 5 FNCS Finals appearances. Some of these other players in the lobby have more than 40, so great job from Syaz and Scary.
Yeah, the new blood from Spain is impressing, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it is. I'm sort of half impressed by these guys today, but also I can't help but think I'm a little bit disappointed, right? These guys were on height 2 times. They went down in ways that I don't really think they should be. We sort of bigged them up at the beginning of the day. They went down to a team that was I think it was actually Shark and Teeny earlier on in game 1, wasn't it? Where they lost the height. So it was like, they need to get better at that.
Yeah, but let's face it. Look, they're on a leaderboard and they're in a lobby right now with Swizzy and Pixie. This is a team that should absolutely be doing better in terms of consistency. They went out at the start of the end game in that last game. So I want to give Syaz and Scary props, because I think we're seeing development in this duo across the season so far. They have the momentum. Let's see if they can snowball all the way to a top placement in the grand finals next weekend. But let's take a look at page 2 now. Now, I want to look at the top 14 here, guys watching at home, because remember, 10 duos go through on consistency. Page 1, we've also got the duos that are already qualified via VRs. So there you can see Wox and Kiro, they're on the cusp, and so are the Deal and Jew to Carter.
But not by far. 15th place, 112. A single point difference is what the cutoff is. After the next match, it will be top 15. That will be the equivalent of being top 10 in terms of consistency. So it is way too close for comfort right now for every player on this list. And Chino Pablo are surprising me that they're outside of the cutoff right now. This is some of the best players in the world, right? And they're struggling to make it through heats right now, going to literally the last match to make it happen.
Yeah, it's actually a really good point you raised, Carter. The fact that Pablo and Chino, they started off strong, they started out hot, and the last 2 games, Mini Miner, they disappeared.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very odd. I mean, these guys, had a great start. You expect to see them sort of continuing that momentum that we saw from them at the Major 1 finals, and then, of course, the Summit. It's like, yeah, let's see if these guys can continue that. They seem to start that, and then things have just started to fall apart bit by bit here. So they've already got to shape things up here for the final game. And if there's anyone in the lobby, realistically, that we'd expect to have a great game here, it would be them as well. They can pop off in the big moments, so I have no doubt they will.
They can pop off in the big moments, but they're not necessarily known for getting VRs in moments that really matter. If they have to go to that last chance qualifier on Tuesday, that's going to be really tough for them. They have to get a VR to get through to the grand finals, and they might need to get a VR right now. Let's head into game 5 with Levin and Taco.
The one silver lining, though, for a team like Chino and Pablo is knowing that there is that last chance lobby right around the corner, but more importantly still, that they are already qualified for Belgium. So that's the real grand prize that's on the line for this Major 2 finals. But obviously, players with such stature would much rather find themselves secured and acquiring that qual spot early on here in their heat.
If they don't make it through today and I message Chino and he goes, yeah, I've already called globals, I'm looking at him like, I don't care at all. You have to get the job done. This isn't the team we want to see in the last chance. Obviously, they're much better than that, right? We've seen their quality over time here in EU, and so you've got to think they'll get it done, but they ain't the only ones. If you start to look down that leaderboard, there's quite a few names that have to make this final game count. Who will be our teams making it from Heat 1 in Game 5? Let's find out.
And already going to take a look at one of the most aggressive instances for all spawns that we've seen, but Six and Wers not immediately forced into a 50-50 up against the likes of Kiruo and Prax. The environment already shifting. Kiruo deciding instead we'll just opt to go a little bit further north, venture into Latte Landing, and see whether or not we can edge our bets even better over here in this direction, because clearly, even after winning the off spawn, it wasn't necessarily paying out huge dividends, and they need to get some form of momentum, whatever it takes to be the catalyst to their game plan, even if it's going for a surprise contest at teams further north. Any tiny little advantage. This is where it's essentially the last stop before the last stop of the last chance lobby.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? For Kidua and Prax, the decision making was clear. We are way down in the standings. The only hope for us to get out of this heat is through a win. We need to secure and guarantee ourselves surviving off spawn. And like we talked about earlier, Taco, when you move POI, you're still at risk of just moving into another contested situation.
For
this
sure.
one seems to be paying off a bit better for them so far.
And that's the real takeaway, I think, is just knowing that, Prax, if you're at least going to opt for that kind of challenge, you may as well close it out. But Shark and Teeny, they have been very adventurous. They're now tied for Shark's OG record of second places, and I don't think that's the kind of record you want to beat, Levin.
No, definitely not. I think ultimately, again, it will be fine because they're qualified, they've made it through, and you know, some of the second places haven't been the worst, right? Like there was the one they definitely should have won in game, was it game 3? Oh no, that was game 2, right? Game 2 was the one that they definitely should have won. And I think all the others have sort of been like, you know, 1v2s. We'll give you those. On your day, you probably do win those because you are just so good, but it's fine. I'm not gonna lie. This needs to be big for Zany and Buck. They were one of the teams I sort of had on my radar as like a sneaky consistency qualification team here. And it's not out of reach, obviously, but not a really great spot to be in whatsoever.
Part of the problem is just that so many other teams have decided to sort of step up to the plate. Anytime they hear action, it just looks like, you know, it's like piranhas swarming to an area. Everyone just recognizing when they have even the slightest chance to get an elimination, and they're willing to take it. Pablo Chino opening up strong here. That elim onto country, but that's a tough break. You're on the receiving end of that type of aggression.
Pablo and Chino. It's been hard to pinpoint what's been going wrong. We obviously saw them last game really struggling on the Surge side of things, which again seems odd for a team who's been landing Sinister all season. Very familiar with the spot. These games have been unpredictable at times, especially with all the fighting and chaos going on over at Heatwave and that affecting how people rotate through the southern area.
Skrill and Scrap though. This is not going to be easy for either of these duos. Scrap though, just taking a little bit too much damage. We forced to fall back, but Matisse also incredibly injured. The Squirrel calls for a lull in the action here between these two teams, but Skrill, Strapped, they know that they're working against the clock here in this final lobby, because everyone is going to start to become much more aggressive, much more reckless. Just every last shred of opportunity going to be immediately encroached upon, as now Doom and Matisse, they're kind of stuck in the same box. They're not the only ones either. Swizzy and Pixie also trying to see where they can pull things out in the final hour against Six and Wurs.
Mumsy and Skyjump, another team I think who, in this final game, is going to be doing everything in their power to sort of just hold on, right? Hold on and push ahead. They don't want to be one of those teams sort of waiting with their fingers crossed after the game to see if they've managed to sneak their way in. I felt like they started the day strong. They had a 4th place in there in game 2. You saw them make some aggressive plays that seemed beneficial. But now, they look to make this final game count. Let's see where the scrapping's taking place though. Swizzy, Pixie, they're looking to jump into the heater battle. Another team that probably is just sort of skating their way through today, Taco, right? It doesn't feel like we've necessarily seen them doing anything too impressive, right? It's not been like a Shark and Teeny day where it's felt like they've been so close to the win, but they've also just not been bad. They've made it to end games with some consistency and have been a threat on mid-ground at times. We saw Pixie getting PC earlier, right? So they've not had the worst of days. But I think one thing's for sure is next weekend they will surprise quite a fair amount of people. Definitely a team to always have on your radar with the quality of these two players. Saya is scary. We see them in the end games a lot of time, Taco. We've not necessarily seen much of their mid games today, but I guess it's been a lot of this, if I had to imagine what it's been like.
They've still had at least enough big point conversions in these end games to leave it so that it's much less a chance. Their fate's kind of in their own control. Now it's just about whether or not they can solidify things with the victory royale to end the day. Might also do a pretty big favor to other teams in the lobby here, but Sharktini, they're not looking to do anyone a favor. They are just going fully on tour in this lobby. 4 eliminations already, 3 of them being on Teeny. And it is just relentless aggression from these two. They don't seem even the slightest bit deterred whether or not one of them gets eliminated early on. It just doesn't seem to make much of a difference to their ultimate game plan of just duking things out from start to finish.
Yeah, last game they had an 18. So wouldn't be surprised if they're just trying to push for as many as possible. They want to drop the 20 and end it out. This would be the best game for them to win now, right? You know, it's like Hey guys, we were just messing with you guys all day. Let's get this dub now. And I did say that I was like expecting them to probably end the day with an 150-point lead, which was me sort of just, you know, saying it blasé, but an 100-point lead going into this final game, if they keep their aggression on, they might just end with that type of a lead. Okay, the fighting continues, and this is a fight against a team that cannot allow this to happen. Skydump and Mumsy sat on that threshold going into this game, just behind it, and just like that, their chances of playing in the grand final next weekend will come down to the last chance lobby. TD and Shark breaking hearts here in game number 5.
French duo definitely not going to be happy with that one, but we have seen them bounce back in those last chance environments in the past, so potentially able to do it yet again, but that's the future. Right here, right now, trying to gauge whether or not some other teams might be able to join those who have already qualified via Victory Royales on the Major 2 Grand Finals Battle Bus. Shark and Teeny, though, you would think that there would be some point that they might choose to slow down, but no. Even just looking at the lobby currently, is Teeny maybe second guessing. He'll leave the rest up to Shark, close things out. 8 eliminations altogether between the two of them, but more importantly still, Levin, it's the fact that this has got to be one of the quickest lobbies that we've seen here today. Normally we're used to seeing at least 60-something players up by the time we make it towards the secondary partial zones even, but none of that in this final game. The gloves are off. Everyone is just honestly throwing punches whatever direction they feel might bode best for them.
Yeah, and it's a tough spot to be in, right? Especially when you're one of the teams who you're actually just sort of right behind the threshold, right? You're sort of in and amongst it, and a good game for you could be enough to push you into the top 10 consistency. For Tus and Kami, they've got to be careful here now. Managed not to completely get taken out by the players camping in the bush. We'll pause their rotation for the meantime.
And that's the thing, I was just about to say, they're just hovering. They're teeter-tottering, that fine line between just making it in and just being out. And it's so difficult to actually overcome that boundary because it all seems so simple on paper. At the end of the day, how hard could it realistically be to come top 10 in placements? And yet, here we are staring down Chino and Pablo, who are in that exact position, a duo that you would never imagine would find themselves in this sort of position, potentially having to hinge their hopes of Major 2 Grands on a last chance lobby.
Yeah, it's not the ideal spot to be in. And I mean, again, the urgency really has to kick in. I'm not gonna lie to you, Taco. I still feel like my brain hasn't calibrated to the fact that like Major 2 is the last major. You know, I'm still so used to us having the Major 3. So I'm like, if you done Major 2, it don't matter, man. You're good. You still got Major 3. No, you messed this major up. You obviously got the last chance lobby next week, and the other last chance qualifier that we'll have in a couple weeks' time. But you just don't want to be leaving it to that. Want to get the job done here in next weekend's grand finals.
Interesting, though, to see the zone sort of pulling towards Shark and Teeny's backyard. Calamari Canyon, Kiro and Walks currently situated just a little bit north right now, hovering the outskirts of Battlewoods, but I really want to emphasize on is the fact that Shark and Teeny, they've been north, south, and back again, just traveling every which direction. They don't care. They are headed wherever they feel like the fight is at because they refuse to budge and give way. Another elimination here for Shark.
And with that 9th elim, they now have the most elims in the heats of anybody so far this year. The most we saw was 48 from Pete and Poyo in Major 1. These two have just overtaken them on the day thus far. And I think they're going to keep racking that tally up here. So, Shark and Teeny strutting their stuff, showcasing a bit of why they will be a threat come next weekend. I don't expect to see them play this way next weekend, mind you, but you know they got it in their locker if need be.
You wouldn't think so, but these two are certainly full of surprises at times. Shark Teeny just continuing to wrap around. Will avoid a good chunk of the congestion that's been building currently on the edge of zone here, but they might have ISIL figured out that there's a solo directly in front of them. And unfortunately for HD, this is the last stop you want to see. Shark Teeny barreling down your direction, and that's just going to be another freebie elimination for these two to pick up.
And we joke about them not having to play this way in the Grands lobby, but we've seen it over the years where a team will just have a really rough start to a game, where they really need to start to claw things back and have a big game to save their grand finals. And so in many ways, like, this is a bit of practice for that scenario for them, right? As far as what do we gotta do to just drop a 20 bomb in a stacked lobby? This lobby may be a bit less stacked than the others we've seen, like you highlighted, but nonetheless, still so many people in this lobby playing for their season right now. Playing to keep the dream and the hopes alive. And there's quite a few names left in this lobby, Taco, who this game will mean so much to. Whether that's because they're currently in that top 10 most consistent, or whether they're a team like Reason and Khan, who is frankly nowhere near top 10 in consistency and so need to win this game.
This is all or nothing right now for Reason and Khan. They don't want to try and stick around to see what that last chance lobby might be looking like. They want to see whether or not they can actually bring it home here in Game 5. The main priority for a lot of these teams to think about subconsciously is trying to avoid where they think Shark and Teeny might be headed next. And one thing's for sure is that Shark and Teeny have been very aggressive towards trying to overtake the high ground. So if you are one of those teams that's sort of hovering just outside that placement consistency zone, maybe height is not exactly going to net you any favors this game. And for Swizzy, Shark and Teeny, just gonna put him in the dirt. They're not gonna give him the chance. Pixie to try and see whether or not he can recoup. Shark and Teeny, they are just fighting their own separate battles. Two players working as individuals right now, but still functioning the same to contribute points to their overall count, because every single fight that they've started, they've managed to finish.
Yeah, these guys are gonna be a big problem, because this is a game where people will be trying to take height, or at least you think people will want to try and take height desperately to save their tournament. And if these guys are already up there waiting to fight you, they want the scrap. That's the thing, they want the fight with you right now. And that becomes really problematic. Pixie is so down below on Surge that I don't think there's much hope for him here.
This is where he knows if he just had Swizzy next to him to maybe take off some of that pressure. But you can't heal and look for damage, and when you are sitting so far underneath that Surge threshold, Pixie's gonna resort to his final option to just hoping that a player gets eliminated in time for the Surge to turn off. Whether or not his last medkit's going to buy him enough time for it doesn't seem to be the case here. His HP still getting ticked away at steadily. He'll be forced to open up, look for an aggressive edit, and just hope that he doesn't receive any punishment for it, but only a couple of seconds left to go, and Pixie will find himself cut short because of Surge. And that initial elimination by Shark and Teeny just haunting overhead. Maybe they've done enough, though, points-wise, Levin, to stay just inside that safety net.
Yeah, they might have just done enough, but it will remain to be seen as we kind of cross the different teams left in this lobby. We'll figure out just how many of them really have a fighting chance of beating that as far as consistency points. And honestly, they'll be hoping that Shark and Teeny are able to win this game now. They will be their biggest supporters, because if they do, the slot that they occupy will move down one and just give them a bit more breathing room. The Deal and Jew are one of the teams who was barely in on consistency now, so this game is huge for them. They need a big game to keep themselves in on that consistency front.
But we saw exactly what the Deal and Jew had just been looking at. The glimpse over towards the high ground. Shark and Teeny appeared to have control of it, but Kiro walks from underneath. Pablo Chino now starting to come alive here in some of these final moments, but walks Kiro. They've got to try and match the steps here, some of these other teams, but Deal has lost Jew somewhere along the way here, though, and down to his final 3 builds, clawing to get every single bit of placement points he can muster up, but 151, will it actually be enough in the grand scheme of things? Only time will tell. Is now Pablo Chino just behind, still working their way up, and the lobby is just thinning out so rapidly currently. Chino and Pablo recognizing the fact that this is our moment to truly come alive.
And they've done so much good fortune for themselves right now. They took down the Nori and Darkos. They took down a team in that top 10 consistency. They're taking out their biggest competition to try and steal a spot away. If they can continue to hold on, as Shark and Teeny finally drop the 20 and look to try close out the day with a win. They're jumping into boxes. They know they need every elim they can get. Kiro won't hold on for much longer. Chino will finally take him out. And those 4 elims and this placement that they have acquired might just be enough to secure them that spot in the finals if they can keep holding on.
Knowing Shark and Teeny, though, these two have probably entered their own competition along the way, but Pablo, he's gonna catch Teeny off guard. Shark, though, quick to the punch, quick to punish. And that might just be a revive opportunity. A great attempt there, though, from Chino and Pablo to try and overtake on Height. But they've been chopped. Shark hasn't managed to get the full revive off just yet. And instead, another duo going to look to try and overtake on Height. Shark as a solo, can he actually bring this one out?
It's the 1v1. Shark to win out the game. They've come second place way too many times. They've been in touching distance. And now the young Shark has the opportunity to show the world that they mean business this season. Boris will be way deep in the storm, and it will leave the opportunity for Shark and Teeny to win the game. 23 elimination win after their previous 18 elim second. These guys are a different gravy, Taco.
Hey, better late than never, after all. Shark and Teeny, we already knew what they were capable of, but good to see them actually build that Victory Royale in the final hour. But still, Frankie, Takata, Minnie, everything that you guys saw, I want to hear it.
I saw cinema, and I want to go back for seconds, guys. Project it, 70mm IMAX. Move over the Odyssey, because Shark and Teeny are in town. They're going to the grand finals. That was never in doubt before they played a single game. The fact that they were just, the momentum, they were just unstoppable, Takata, makes me so excited to see if they can take Major 2 by force next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, 3 second places, hat trick second place, finishing off with a Victory Royale that got, what, 23 eliminations throughout the day. They might have made history in heats with the amount of eliminations they got. Their only bad match was the 24th place. Despite that, doesn't even matter. They set history today. Nothing you'd expect less from Shark and Teeny. What a way to close it out, Minnie.
Yeah, really great job from these guys. You know, we already knew they qualified by about game 2 or 3, right? So it was just a victory lap for them for the rest of the games. And yeah, honestly, they made the lobby look easy. And when you're a team that can do that at this level of Fortnite, they have to be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the grand finals, because a lot of the conversation around these guys' last major was the fact that, yeah, they're going to be contested in the grand finals. They've been having a bit of a topsy-turvy time with Hutty and Fishy X over there at Wonkyland. Now they're landing at Calamari Canyon. If they can keep that drop spot uncontested, if they can continue the ability to make these end games and do what they have done today in those major grand finals, these guys have to be on the top of people's list in order to actually win the whole thing, because what we saw today was just levels above the rest.
Yeah, now it's all up to grand finals. That's what their eyes are focused on. This is what they really want. I mean, Summit, although Argentini are already qualified to the global championship, you know, based on how well they are at performing, they want more than that. They want trophies, they want axes, they want to get that first place finish. So I'm excited to see if they can pull it through in the major finals.
I mean, with an average of 12.2 eliminations across 5 games tonight, boys, that is insane. And obviously, as Takata, you've already said, 3 second places. This is consistency, I feel like, that we haven't really seen for a while. In fact, this year, I feel like we haven't seen this consistency outside of maybe Sky and Skull. Mini Miner, this is going to be such a showdown, particularly between them and Sky and Skull, who we'll definitely expect to see making it next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just really great to see these guys actually continuing that consistency of just being a top team in the region. My mind sort of cast back all the way back to Chapter 5 for Teeny when he played with Chap, and he couldn't quite find that success consistently. But with Shark right here, they seem to just be a different beast.
Definitely. And let's take a look at those Victory Royale winners. These are the duos who won a game and got all the way through to next weekend, which is why we see names that we're not so familiar with, like Winter and Yoni, and like Godoy and Polo from Spain, Takata, making it.
Yeah, both of those you just mentioned it as well. First time in FNCS finals. So we'll see if the pressure gets to them or if they can perform.
That's what I love about this format. Bring in the new names and, you know, baptism of fire next weekend for those guys. Let's bring up the leaderboard and we can see who qualified on consistency. We're looking at top 15 here, guys, because the top 5, they're the Victory Royale winners you just saw. And if we look at 6th and below, Sires and Scary, never in any doubt these guys would make it, given that they finally found that consistency we've been looking for from them. We couldn't see the Victory Royale, but we did see signs to be happy and satisfied with Takata.
Yeah, Pablo Chino back up in 9th, so it was looking scary. They were 17th going to that match, but looking at the cutoff, it is actually Swizzy and Pixie by 2 points qualifying themselves in. You see Kamihari to an 11th. We got a little concerned. They actually had 145 points going into the last match. They got 4 eliminations, but basically ended up going down off spawn. So if they didn't get those eliminations, they would not have qualified. So many big names on this second page that you'd think this is like, it shouldn't be this close for these players, Mini.
Oh, I mean, I'm just looking there at 16th. My heart absolutely breaks there for Wi-Fi and Boris, or also known as Borsu, I believe his real name is. So it's like 16th, second in that last game. If only they were able to win that game and, of course, qualify themselves through. If only they could get an extra elimination earlier on in the game, because that would be their first time grand final as well. It's moments like that, it's individual situations like that, where realistically, if it was anyone other than Shark and Teeny, they might have had a better chance, and it was there for the taking for them. But really sorry for those guys, but I'm sure they'll be back in the last chance.
Great to see Hari and Cami making it. They had a promising first couple of games. I feel like they slightly disappeared as we went on. So for them to pull it off and make their way to the finals, that's great for them. Great for us to get to witness that. And just seeing Swizzy and Pixie there in 15th nearly threw my pen at the screen, because I feel like that's classic Swizzy and Pixie in 2026. They're always keeping us waiting, guessing. We know that they deserve to be there. We know that they can make it. Sometimes I feel like Takata, did they know they can make it?
No, they know. They know what they're capable of. I mean, it's Swizzy and Pixie, but for all the duos that didn't qualify today in the heats, they still have the last chance. And don't think that the last chance isn't a force to be reckoned with. Back in 2025 Major 2, It was trios, but Shino Pablo, who almost didn't qualify today, qualified through last chance and then got second in the major finals. So still a big opportunity for everyone that didn't make it through the heats in that last chance, but still 2 more heats as well to be played out throughout this weekend, Minnie.
Yeah. Mini.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, if today's anything to go by, I'm sure tomorrow and, of course, Sunday are going to be absolutely electric. We've got so many big names still coming up as well. This lobby was a stacker. Tomorrow's is a stacker. Every single day is going to be hype. And, of course, those wins, those first-time FNCS Grand Finalists, I'm excited to see if we can name any more on the weekend.
We're so excited. And in just under 3 hours' time, North America Central will be here. Zeke and the gang taking you through that one. Do not miss it. These lobbies over the next couple of days, they are absolute fire. So don't miss a moment. As for us, we will see you guys tomorrow. So for now, let's sound that horn. Good night.